to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay. Could I have a motion to accept the agenda?
Oh. We've never done it that way, but to adopt the agenda?
We always do it. We can do
to
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought we adopted the agenda.
Well,
I don't
we usually add or do, and then we make
Right.
it whatever, but just,
So moved.
thank you.
Either
Second?
way.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. Okay, before we do public input, I'll just do a couple of, I'll just do one announcement, and then we can do public input and then get started. Anybody who's here in the audience, please, before you leave, go up there. There is a survey box, and there's a survey being done for walkable and bikeable New Paltz. And it's an extensive survey to talk about creating walkable and bike paths in New Paltz. Very important. The Bike Ped Committee has worked very hard on this. They would really like to make this very, very successful. We have copies up there. There's a little box up there. And anybody who's watching this, please stop in. We've got these surveys all over town and stuff. And the Bike Pedestrian Committee would really, really appreciate people's participation. So if everybody could do that, that would be terrific. Does anybody else have any announcements they'd like to make before we do public input?
On October 24th, out at the landfill will be the grand opening of the new Paltz Reuse Building. It'll be from 11 a.m. till 12:30. We have a brand new building out there. There will be light refreshments. There will be a dedication and ribbon cutting ceremony, I believe, at 12:30. So please come on out and see the new Paltz Recycling Center. It's actually pretty incredible if you haven't been out there in a few years.
And just to back up on what Councilman Logan said, I had gone out there a while ago when we were doing some work, and I was floored to see the amount of stuff that they have. And so honestly, before you go shopping at Home Depot, Lowe's, you can go out and get lamps, you can go and get tiles, you can go get amazing stuff. And it's really, really, really quite remarkable. So it'd be great for people to come out and see what we have and help us to continue to be a zero-waste community as we move forward. So with that, I will open it up to public input. Is anybody who would like to speak during public input? Okay, Josh?
Much quieter this week than the last time I was here. Which is why I want to read a public comment that I had at the last meeting, but I really didn't want to interrupt the flow on the Mohawk project because I thought that was more important. But I'm going to read it. And the letters, it's a little dated because it's 3 weeks later, but I'm going to read it, and some things have changed, so I'll add some thoughts to it. But I just wanted to talk about something that I witnessed 3 weeks ago. And what it was is, I want to thank Susan and Jean for their dedication and service to our community. Last Sunday, I wrote this letter on the 27th, Susan and I had tickets for a farewell dinner for Congressman Hinchy. Marisa served this community well for the many years in public service in Albany and Washington, and has been a good friend to both New Paltz and Susan. I was trying to find Susan that morning to make plans to go, and finally found her and Jean locked up in her office working hard on the town budget. They were writing the new one while trying to correct all the problems and deficiency of last year's budget. Susan had been there since 8:30 and said she'd call me later to firm up the time to leave. About an hour before the dinner, she called and said she couldn't go and to give her ticket away because she was elected to get New Paltz back on track, and that was more important than her social and personal obligations. I know how much she was looking forward to honoring Congressman Hinchy at the dinner, but I also understood the importance of straightening out the budget and getting it in on time. What was even more impressive to me was when I returned to New Paltz at 9:30 to drop off the others who had attended the dinner with me, I noticed that Susan and Jean were still working. I stopped by to see if they needed anything. They looked terribly tired and said they had sent out for a slice of pizza and coffee earlier in the day. So I left them so they can continue working and get home as soon as possible. The next day when I spoke to Susan, I found out that they were here past 1 o'clock in the morning. And my thought was, that's what I call public service, and that's why we elected them. And this past Sunday reaffirmed that we made the right choice. But since then, there's been some other news in New Paltz, so I want to just add a couple of thoughts. Because I assume we're getting closer to the budget and discussing the new budget and everything. So this year, when Susan came into office, a lot had changed. I was one of the people who pushed her to run based on some of the things that I had knowledge of that was wrong. I knew I was asking her to take a step back politically and to give up a higher salary than she was earning, but I knew that we needed her. The reality was worse than anybody could have guessed. When this term began, everything had to be dealt with, from physical condition of town hall, bookkeeping, security problems, and more, as reported in the controller's report. When Susan was in office the first time, she had held taxes flat and never asked for a raise. The budget was $3.9 million when she left. During her absence, it had gone up 104% to over $8 million. This time when she was elected, the job was not the same as it was. Nobody could have known how bad things were. This year, for 2012, the A fund was $6,870,000. The last budget that she had done in 2000 was $3,169,000. So that means that during her absence, there was a 117% increase. And by the way, during the decade where Dave Lent and Susan were supervisors, the taxes went up a total of 11%. The job may have been a part-time job then, but it certainly isn't anymore. And this year, it was a double job that has still not gotten back to normal. When Susan and the new board got to work, it was discovered the prior supervisor had ignored the files for certain monies the town was eligible for. They found things like $75,000 in FEMA money that would have been lost, a $50,000 grant for consolidation that had not been taken care of and would have been lost. They found $13,000 from the Environmental Protection Fund, $7,500 from Greenway, $50,000 from Woodland Pond, and are expecting, I think, I'm not sure about this, but I think there's $100,000 that might be coming in from Ulster County Recovery Agency. And just recently, Time Warner, she forced Time Warner to agree to give the town $200,000 that they owed us and were balking about. She was persistent, would not be put off, as had been the case in the past. They showed up with their lawyer and Susan with our lawyer, and the deal was done. She is still working on other revenues we can get for the future. The good news is that the real property tax is down over 10% and the budget will be flat. It is good leadership that will keep us afloat and allow us to move forward into the future. In the last administration, we had a boss who operated in the dark and took a second job that was detrimental to her performance as supervisor. Now we have a leader whose priority is the town and who has the skills to get the job done. I know that this entire board and the rest of our elected town officials are working as hard as they can to make New Paltz the kind of place that we want to live in and we can all be proud of. We need to all work together as one community to make it happen.
I just have to say, Don Carr and some other people were instrumental.
We're at the meeting. I realized that when Don came in that I had forgotten when I voted in. But I know that he was not.
But anyway, but it's absolutely true. Anybody else would like to? Sure.
I wanted to address, I'm going to leave for you and Kevin to talk about the meeting with Time Warner, because you were there, and certainly I want to save that news for you.
I actually don't have it on the agenda. Oh, actually, no, I probably will have to talk about it because we're doing the B fund, and that will help.
Okay.
That.
Well, just so the other board members are up to date, and the clerk, here's an email I sent to Time Warner summarizing the agreement points of the meeting and what occurred. It's certainly safe to say it was good news for the town, and my congratulations and thanks to Susan and to Kevin for helping to bring that home. It was a good day. There's one item I spoke with the village board last night about, and they asked me to bring it to the town board with the idea of coming to an agreement and having everyone on the same page by the next joint meeting, which is in a couple of weeks.
No, it's actually next Wednesday.
Okay, all right. Well,
So good timing.
that then. And that's the item of the equipment reimbursement from Time Warner with regard to the various franchise agreements. I think as part of the town agreement, the town agreed to forego that because Time Warner is nice enough to provide equipment, but then they charge the customers back for the cost of that equipment. So it's not very much of a gift. The village board seemed to feel the same way. They would like to find some sort of a way to have some sort of equipment with the franchise agreement, and they'd like to find a way to move this quickly so that you all can get your money. I was going to suggest the number that Time Warner was talking about with regard to the village portion of equipment was equipment in the amount of $15,000. And I was going to suggest as a compromise, because you all want the village to move forward quickly so you can get your money, to talk about a number of half that size, $7,500 worth of equipment, to be purchased by the town for use at joint meetings and to be kept at Village Hall and to be able, for the village to be able to use it as well, for their purposes. something that, out of this windfall that's coming from Time Warner, would be able to be, you know, a very small portion of which would be able to be shared with the village as a way for them to move forward quickly on working with the franchise agreement. So
they want to forfeit their 15,000
yeah, they want to forfeit
because of the pass-through?
because Time Warner would be charging their customers. And if there's, but they do feel that moving forward over the next 10 years, there would be a need for equipment. And I think Bob Fagan had put together a list of $30,000 worth of equipment.
Well, when we consolidate, it'll be easy.
Yep, yep.
But just so I just understand, and also let me just try to explain it to everybody. And then there is an agreement, the village has their agreement, the town has their agreement, but I guess through past history, they've tried to make them very similar. And, but the town actually has a construction fund, which the village doesn't have, and we had significant amount of money, about $350,000 rounding in the construction fund, of which about 150 is being pulled out to continue to build out new poles where the areas that still need to get cable, leaving about $200,000 in the construction fund. Prior to the end of the last administration, there was a public hearing. The money was supposed to come back unhindered, the $200,000 back to the town, but Time Warner pulled what they called, quote, a bait and switch, and all of a sudden tried to encumber that $200,000 and say that it had to be used for educational programming, and they had to give their approval. So over the course of, since I've gotten in, we've been trying to work on getting that money unencumbered, given back to the community, and Don and I played a little bit of bad cop, and pretty much got pretty high up and got a meeting with the Time Warner lawyer, which was not easy to do, because not only do they not come to meetings with their lawyer, they don't even return your phone calls. And so between Don and I, while I was on vacation, Don wrote a letter that I had asked him to do, and then I followed up with a email telling them that this was the last step before we had a lawsuit, and then Don followed up to set up the meeting, and we got the meeting with their lawyer. We had it last week. So they pretty much came in, I would really almost say, with their tail between their legs in a way, pretty much willing to compromise the second they sat down. And the only little quirk was, what they wanted to do is there was $30,000 in the budget, in the contract to go towards equipment. And they wanted to take out of the $200,000 we were getting to net that $30,000 out and forego the equipment.
15 of it.
Well, 15 would be through the town and stuff. So, you know, doing the math, I still think the town comes out pretty damn well ahead of itself, you know, but it was what we had to do with the village. So Don, you know, in my eagerness to say to Don, let's not wait to go back to the village and work this out. We need them to have a deal before we walk out. Don came up with a great suggestion saying we can't agree for the village, but Don said, why don't you, what did you say? You said to basically the 15, you took the 30, the 15, and what was your suggestion? It was really good.
Well, I think my suggestion was that we couldn't bargain
Right.
about the
For the
village's
village, right.
$15,000. So at the end of the meeting, I suggested that they just take that out altogether.
Right.
And in between now and the approval, we'd figure out some way
Right.
to get the village board to agree to foregoing
Okay.
that $15,000 in
So now
equipment.
this is what I just want to try to understand. So the village doesn't want to take that $15,000, pass it through to their residents, which we understand. So what do they, just
They
if you
want
can explain?
$7,500 worth of equipment for us to buy.
So they want out of our money that
Use
would,
it.
Yes, and the idea would be, it would be purchased for use for joint meetings
Makes sense.
held
Okay.
where the town board is involved. So it'd
So-
be your equipment used for your use, and they could use it also, would be the idea. And the other important point was the first payout from Time Warner
yes,
doesn't get touched. Any funds for the village would come out of the second payout, which would happen about a year down the road. So that would be something I think the village could move with.
The only thing that I had said when you had emailed about the suggestion of the village purchasing their equipment and stuff, was all I did was I emailed back and said, not that I have a problem with it, but to have the village say, we'll buy this equipment, and the town say, we'll buy this equipment, I'd rather see what equipment do we need, collectively to do the broadcasting of the town and the village meetings, and then figure out what equipment we need to buy, and we could sort of jointly
Well,
own it with,
that's-
and I'd rather do that. I mean, I'd rather.
That's why you have joint meetings. You
Right,
probably can work that out.
Exactly. So that's my attitude, is just sort of like for them to go buy their equipment and us to go buy our equipment. Let's look at what the equipment needs are. Let's figure out, maybe they buy one piece, but we buy all the rest, and it's needed to be a set. But let's just do it intelligently versus you go spend your money, we spend our money. Let's just be smart about it. Yeah, exactly.
So they're aware it's an issue to be discussed. You're aware it's an issue to be
Yeah,
discussed.
so
I
it's
don't
not
think
a
it's a
big deal.
huge issue that should be a real bump in the road. And I want to give credit, a lot of people have been giving credit to Dave Lent.
Yeah, that's
Dave
great.
Lent got on this committee to renew the new franchise agreement, and that was 7 years ago. God bless his soul. God bless his soul.
And why don't we say, so Dave Lent actually resigned.
Yes.
And then when Don and I got the meeting going, I wrote a letter to Dave and said, Dave, we're playing hardball. Can you at least stay in the game with us until we get an agreement, and then you can resign? So Dave graciously agreed to stay on. He
Yes.
came to the meeting, and I told Dave, when we sign the contract, he could resign.
And Kitty has been our longtime liaison from the town board. She attends the meetings. She's really amazing. So it's a good team.
Yeah, yeah.
A
Now, the
couple
only
of questions before
Sure.
you go.
Oh, yeah.
So, we did get a needs assessment for equipment from Bob Fagan, I think a few years ago. So if we could dredge that up
Oh, I have
again,
it.
maybe at our
I have it.
meeting Monday, and have that come to our joint meeting, and so we can agree at the joint meeting. I mean, it sounds like we have a
Yeah.
year at least to come up with what the needs are gonna
Yeah,
be.
I agree.
But if you could find that,
I brought it
needs-
to the meeting
Yeah,
with Time Warner.
oh, great,
Yeah.
So
okay.
Yeah, we have it.
It's in my trunk, the trunk of my car.
So what happens to the accounting for the 160,000 in the construction fund?
We actually, if I remember correctly, we said as soon as we saw the contract, we wanted them to get started with the build-out, right?
But what if
Yeah.
it doesn't cost 160,000?
Then I suspect that money will come back to us. I think that was estimated at, per mile, what was still left to build out, and that's how they come up with that cost. So I think
Okay,
it's pretty,
because 3 years ago, the town sent out a letter saying, if you want to be hooked up for free under this construction fund allocation, you need to let us know by May of 2009
Right.
or something. And we did get some responses. So I don't know if that is the list that Time
Well,
Warner
I
is
think there are
working
8 specific
off of.
roads that they're looking at, 8 specific.
Well, that's
It
different.
is-
That's-
no, it is,
wait,
Kitty,
wait,
it
8
is-
roads is different than, I think, the 5
There were
individuals.
5 individuals, and one of them was on a private road. and
Yeah.
was probably gonna not agree to the expense on the private.
Right, I mean, there was one private road that was $35,000
And
for
we
one
all
person.
agreed that was not going to happen.
Right.
And then there
So-
was 4, I think that left us with 4, and that was about 2 years ago.
Right,
all I can say is I just know, looking through all the contracts, that whatever roads you had identified way back is the roads that they're talking about. They, in the contract that had been negotiated last year or whatever, there were roads that were identified, and whatever those roads are still the roads they're talking about.
And they were vetted through whatever the process was.
well, okay.
Well, we can have it, we can have it.
I think it's just, I mean, it's wonderful. Thank you for getting us the initial lump sum payment. That's progress we've waited 7 years
I
for.
think I just figured it out.
Okay,
I think there are some locations that do have cable, but do not yet have high-speed cable. So in addition to the areas that don't have cable at all, they're talking about bringing high-speed cable to some of the areas that
Okay.
don't yet have the high-speed internet. Because one of their points was, this will, at the end of this will bring high-speed internet to the whole town.
Right.
So there's that aspect too. That's probably where the extra roads come
right,
in.
I mean, well, I guess this is a conversation to have in the future, but as Dave Lent pointed out time and time again, the people who are paying for this are people who get cable TV, not just high-speed internet. So if the construction fund was originally to bring cable TV to individuals, and if the thought is now that it's going to bring internet cable to people who have direct TV, then it's a different use, because the point of all of this was that everybody who paid into this fund would have access to Channel 23, would be able to watch local access television. So, I'm happy to look at the new contract and see what it says, but
Well, it's not,
I,
it's
I
actually.
don't want to be just having roads identified, because that could be the rest of our lives.
I'd probably
Well-
characterize that poorly.
Okay, if it's the original 4 or 5 families that were, said, yes, we want to sign up for this under the construction fund, then let's go for it.
Well, there, just so I just clarify, there is no new contract. This is still the contract that was negotiated last year that you guys had the public hearing on. and then the rug was pulled out from you because of the $200,000 construction fund coming back to the general fund, well, it actually goes back to the B fund, but versus, they said all of a sudden that it was gonna go to education and it was gonna
Right.
be, so
Right.
whatever, so it's still all, that's all still the same. And the only thing right now, that the only little thing that's changed is they're taking out the equipment that, the $30,000 for equipment that had been in the contract, and they're saying, we want you to take that out of your construction fund. So that's the only thing that's changed is, us just getting the contract done and them taking that $30,000 out. Nothing else has changed.
Okay. And what happened to the extra space in Village Hall that had belonged to the town that we were thinking of using as the studio for Channel 23?
We haven't discussed that.
Is
Well,
it
that wasn't
still
part, that
available?
wasn't part of our,
That time, that's not part of the Time Warner.
Yeah,
No,
right.
but while you're here, it's a conversation to have at the joint meeting with the village, because the fire department had also requested
Okay,
use.
so why don't we save that, because it's really
but
not on the agenda, and
I
this is
do
really
just
public
want to
comment.
get it on the agenda for next week,
Uh-huh.
because Jason doesn't like it when we add things at the meeting.
Well, if we put public access on, then that's part of the public
Okay.
access, right? But I'm gonna meet, I've been starting to meet with Jason, and I've been meeting pretty much every week, although last week I had to
Okay.
cancel, but I can talk to him tomorrow, but,
Okay.
so the room,
All right.
Thanks, Don.
and
Yeah,
then,
well, that was my public comment sitting at the table about public access. So I'll go over here.
okay, then, Don, just so, you
As an individual.
did you, Don, what Don did was, they're supposed to get us a, letter of agreement from what transpired at the meeting
Before tonight.
before tonight. I had asked for it to have it for tonight, they didn't, but you did send this letter sort of confirming what
Yes.
came out, but did they ever acknowledge confirmation of this?
No.
Okay,
So
so,
we'll need to.
I'm gonna probably have to,
Exactly.
now I'm gonna probably have to wait 7 years again to, like, get them to, whatever. But anyway, I'll try to get it for the Wednesday meeting. I'll try to get it for our joint meeting. I'll try to follow up with them. You and I can try to follow up to get it for the joint meeting. So maybe we could agree and pass the resolutions decided that night by both boards.
That'd be great.
So that should be our goal. Okay,
Let
great.
me make just a little public comment, not as a committee chair or anything like that. It's very possible to, and I do, agree with everything that Josh said in his comment. I completely agree, and I've witnessed, and we were just talking about the quality of work and the results and the dollars that have been brought back by the individuals who serve. I'd like to speak generically about the fact that we're looking at changing the way our government works and the components of the government. And, just as we've spoken about the challenges in hiring permanent full-time employees when you don't know, when the benefits questions are up in the air, I think until we know what the government's gonna look like in a year, it's premature to be trying to figure out what compensation rate should be. So that's, and I'd like to keep that away from personalities or individuals. I think as, one of the things we're talking about in the Human Resource Subcommittee is the possibility of having a city manager, someone who would be brought in as is done in certain cities, and we've given some examples. And, if that recommendation were accepted, it would certainly change the roles and responsibilities of positions such as mayor, such as supervisor. It would have an effect. So I think until we define the question of what the government's going to look like, and whether we're going to have, what a new government would look like, and if we're going to have a new government, I just feel challenged in that environment by some of the decisions you're being faced with in compensation. And I say that as a generic question, and really completely aside from the question of individuals and personalities. So I think it's very appropriate to follow that up with once again, praising Susan for your work on with Time Warner. It's incredible what you did, and the amount of money that you brought back to the community for your efforts. Just $200,000 in this sort of environment is an amazing thing. So if I was wearing a hat, I would take it off.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak during public comment? Okay, with that, I guess we will move on to the meeting. I'm sorry that Jean, I think Jean had a funeral. I'd hoped that she'd make it here, because I hate doing budget stuff without Jean, but it is what it is, and we're dealt the hands we're dealt with, so let's move on. So the first action item, before we get into sort of budget workshop stuff, is the crossing guard, situation. You all got the letter today from Maria, so let me just give a little bit of background. Again, as we know, the debate started with the school district and with the village, and the two of them were fighting this out. And, when I came in, I asked the board to sort of step up to the plate to get involved and do this as a one-time cost, and the board graciously backed me up, and we protected the kids of New Paltz, and they got a crossing guard, and it's been very appreciated by the parents. As we've been trying to vet this out, there had been some confusion, unfortunately, by the school district, where I think they just assumed it was all working really, really well, and that it would just continue. And so at the beginning of September, they just assumed it was going to be the same relationship, until I sort of called and said, no, this was a one-time deal. I sent them the resolution and said that, my board's not really incredibly supportive of this. It's really your responsibility. So a lot of work's been done by myself and Maria. I brought the controller in with the chief and whatever. There's been a lot of research done, and even Mike Townsend, our reporter, has been doing research. And when I was at the school board meeting, trying to help to facilitate the conversation on the crossing guard to get to where we really need to go, Michael was doing research the whole entire time to find out the legality of this whole entire situation. And so it seems from all the work and the stuff that even Michael found that seems to bear it all out, that municipal law is such that I'll read that General Municipal Law 208 authorizes cities, village, towns, and county and district police departments to provide for school crossing guards to control vehicular traffic in order to protect children going to and from school. Because schools do not have the authority to designate, authorize, or appoint school crossing guards, the New York State Office of the State Controller has opinioned that a school district may neither employ school crossing guards nor continue to expense the borne by a municipality which employs them. And this is an Attorney General opinion. Consequently, only local governments may hire, supervise, and compensate school crossing guards. The district has budgeted funds for the 2012-2013 school year to reimburse the town of New Paltz or the New Paltz Town Police Department up to $10 per hour for 2 hours per day for 180 days for the total of $3,600. The district would like to work with you to ensure the crossing guard position will continue for the 2012-2013 school year. We'll have our attorney create an intermunicipal cooperative agreement to memorialize the resolution in the best interest of the children of the district. So where we're sort of at now, it was interesting in some of the research that Mike Townsend had done. He found legislation that had been introduced last year up in the state Senate and actually in the Assembly to ask the state to actually change the legislation that doesn't allow schools to hire crossing guards. And it passed the Assembly, it passed the Senate, but it had been vetoed by the governor. I don't know which governor it was. I never went back and had the time to find out when this had actually happened, and it was vetoed by a governor. I don't know why. It makes no sense. But what I also saw was Senator Betty Little was the senator who was sponsoring it in the Senate, and she was going to be reintroducing it again. I happen to have a very close relationship with Senator Betty Little through the property tax work that I do up in Albany, and saw her when I was up there when advocating for the $1 million that we got through the Assembly and Senate and the governor signed. So I do plan on reaching out to Betty Little to sort of find out what stood in the way, what governor vetoed it, and talking to her about the importance of trying to move this forward and making this happen, and so we can sort of just get it off of our backs completely. So hopefully we can do that. And I can't really see Governor Cuomo, if this should pass both houses, where Governor Cuomo would veto this. It just doesn't make any sense. But in the interim, it seems right now from all the research that the school district can pay for they can hire and pay for a crossing guard off of school property. However, there have been some districts where they have paid for a crossing guard. They haven't been able to hire them, but they've reimbursed the community. So what the school district is doing is they are saying they've got the money, they've got no problem with the money, they just can't legally have a mechanism to actually, pay for it. To manage it. And every research seems to show that it's really managed under the police, under a police department. So what's being asked of us is for us to really consider our willingness to just continue as it is, accept the payment for that from them, have the crossing guard report to the police chief, which he already does, and then we would bill them on a voucher, which means they're not an employee of ours. And we do this with other people and with other employees, pay on a voucher, and basically, the chief would still continue. And so, unfortunately, I sort of feel like, I've worked on this a lot more than I should have had to work on it, and it was really not our problem to start with, but it was the right thing to do for the kids. And all this work is showing that it seems like it really does belong under the police department, We certainly don't want the crossing guard to be an employee, but we checked with the auditor, and we could do it through a voucher because he is just a crossing guard, nothing else, so it's legal. So tonight's the night that basically our resolution ends, and if we don't actually continue with this, even on a temporary basis till the end of December, as we keep trying to move forward, or the school year next year, as of tomorrow, there will not be a crossing guard out there. So I don't think I have to tell you all how I feel, that, government doesn't make things easy. These multiple governments don't make everything easy. But at the end of the day, I think we need to have the crossing guard out there. And if this is the way we have to do it, the fortunate thing is, and one of the things I said to the controller and I said to the superintendent is, you might come back and tell me you can't do it, but don't come back and tell me that you don't have the money to do it. Because because it's not really fair for us as a board to have to do it. Now, quite truthfully, if it ended up happening where we'd have to pay for it, I don't know what I would do because, again, to me, it's all about the kids. But fortunately, they did find, the controller found some other districts that did come up with the money, and they are willing to come up with the money. That's not the problem. So like Maria says, the money's not the problem for the first time. It's just the mechanism of how to do it.
We're just
And
renewing it for another year.
if we could renew it for another year.
This is less than was allocated the last time. It was 4,100 the last time, and it's also not clear from this, does the 2012-2013 school year mean that it's the last day of school in June of 2013?
Well, that would,
Yeah.
that's what it would be, sure.
Well,
Well, what did our contract run before?
Well, contract
it
before
would-
was just the end
that's
of
where the
Ju-
misunderstanding came in, because we were very clear that it was to the end of the school year in June.
Right.
And then when the crossing guards showed up in September, the
Yeah.
school district expected us to start paying them again.
No, well, no, there was a little caveat in the sense, they didn't expect us to come up with the money. They intended to pay it. They never expected us to pay it. They intended to pay it. They just thought the process would stay in place, where we would bill them, they'd give us the money, but we would actually write the voucher to pay the guy. So there was never a concern about the money. After
Well,
you found the
money had been
infamous,
allocated by
the village the first time.
Yes.
Right, it was allocated by the village on a one-time basis, and we accepted it on a one-time basis. Then you found the smoking gun that, showed that when they had asked the DOT to put the crosswalk in,
Mhm.
that they had said that they would put a crossing guard in place. And then when the DOT wrote them back and said, we will give you permission to do the crosswalk, and you should have a crossing guard, at the very next town gal meeting, which interestingly enough, the very first town gal meeting came up, this was up. The next town gal meeting, we had already done the approval and had the crossing guard in place, and you had already found that smoking gun. So Maria, at that meeting, had said, it's our responsibility. We see, we're sorry, we're embarrassed, mea culpa. We will come up with the money next year. What got missed in translation was they didn't understand that the process from the town's perspective was only till June. They just thought that once they came up with the money, we'd still just keep the same process in place.
We got money from the village paid through
June,
June of
yes.
last year.
Absolutely.
Or
Now
this
this-
year,
Yes,
last year.
This year.
well, the school year,
This school year,
right.
yes.
And then in September it
So
started.
the school district's gonna reimburse us from September through
Ab-
June again.
Well,
Absolutely.
It doesn't say.
No, but we can clarify that.
Well, what's going to happen is if we approve this tonight, from the perspective of that, we will keep the crossing guard, we will keep the process in place to assure that there's a crossing guard for our kids, to be paid at the agreed upon rate. The terminology of how we do it, we can still work that out. And because right now, there's a process in place, we're getting the money, the whole amount of money can be worked out. I actually had asked them, she had said, why don't you have your lawyer draw it up? And I said, no. I said, your lawyer's our retainer. And, I'd really like it if the school board attorney drafts this up. So they actually have to draft up an municipal agreement, and so we have time to sort of hash out the details of how we want the
So
municipal.
who's been paying the
The
crossing
school
guard?
has the money.
The school has the money, yeah.
Who's been paying
The
the
school
crossing guard
has.
this fall? The
Well,
school?
we've been paying, what we did was, because I asked this board, once we learned that there was a confusion with the school district, I had asked you guys
On a
2
temporary
meetings
basis.
ago to please continue the process in place to assure a crossing guard. And originally, I'd asked you to do it till they had their school board meeting on the 8th. And then I said, you know what? If they've got a problem and can't work it out, the 9th, there won't be a crossing guard. So I asked you guys to make the resolution that we continue the process till our next meeting on the 18th, which is tonight.
So we've been paying.
No, we're not paying, no, it's the same, we're not paying, they're paying. Well,
Well,
we probably have to build them, we probably haven't built them yet, but that's not the problem.
But the crossing guard's been there,
The
right?
crossing guard's been there because this
Has
board
the
stepped up to the
crossing
plate for a
guard
second time.
been paid by anybody so far?
And paid by us.
we
Yeah.
we
so-
signed the vouchers.
So
Yeah.
we'll just get reimbursed. that's all.
Absolutely, and that's not the problem. That's not the problem.
So I'm fine with this.
Is, everybody else okay? Okay,
I'm fine with this until June of next year. I don't want this to become another line in the town budget
Well,
and
it's
have
not-
us do all the
yeah.
paperwork.
well, I can
Forever.
assure you, I don't disagree with you, Kitty, but I can, what I'm going to try to do is, I am going to get in touch with Senator Betty Little, to find out about the legislation, see if she's reintroducing it, and work with her to try to get it through Albany, so that we can change the law, so the school district can just take this upon themselves, and then it's not gonna be an issue anymore. So,
It's just that what concerns me is that once this becomes a line item in our budget, even though there's a
Mhm.
revenue
it's
reimbursement.
not a line item, we're not even bookkeeping it in our budget. You won't find you won't find in the budget, the crossing guard, because it's sort of outside the purview of the budget, just like, when the police department when the school district does a contract with the police department for the services, at the,
Right,
it's not showing up as an expense in the revenue, it's,
yeah, but that's because they pay the police department directly.
Well,
They
well,
have
they don't-
their
so they-
own,
well, they
they
don't-
have a contract with the police
I know,
department
but they don't pay
for
them
that.
directly, the police isn't taking they have the contract, but the money's still coming to the town.
And
But it's not showing up as
what,
a, it comes in as
just-
revenue, but it doesn't really show up as
So
a,
now, well,
well, I know what you're saying, and I know you're
I'm
concerned.
nervous now that we don't actually have a place where we show the income, the expense and
Well,
the
it's- I
revenue.
don't
Well, we do actually,
If there is a person.
it's 522-3124-400.
And is it under
So
the,
we've paid him 260 and 180, we've given him 440 so far, so.
yeah. And I don't know if the,
So Kitty, it's 3124.
That's in the expended,
It's
And you know-
AAA.
Yeah.
and I think there was a
522-3124.
crossing guard line, but I don't know, Jeff, is it, I can't remember,
Well,
was
that
it in
would
the
be it,
police
probably.
lot, was it in the police budget, or
Oh,
it's
52.
outside of it?
No, 3124 would put it.
Because I remember looking to see, but I think we tried
No,
to.
it's in the, it's with traffic control,
Uh-huh,
the 31. So right now, it's.
Oh, there it is, yeah.
Right now, it's in
It
negative.
is a line.
It's at
but it's
negative,
still,
well, it's at negative $40 right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
So we need to either get money in there or transfer money. We really shouldn't be writing checks out.
well, as
When
of
we do-
October 12th, it was negative 300.
When we do the MOU, we can make sure that there's language in the MOU where it's really very clear that, you know,
440.
how we want to phrase it in the sense of it, you know, Kevin, from a perspective of an MOU, to sort of keep putting in the caveats that this is not to become a town, you know, that the town would step up to the plate to be the conduit to make sure that the kid's protected, but it's not an expense, you know, not an intended expense. Is there a way?
So easy to do that in your intermunicipal agreement.
Okay,
Simple. I don't see a problem.
okay,
Kid, I don't have a current, well, I do, but.
okay. Anyway, to
We
move
have
on, so, okay, as
abbreviated-
long as,
I just have this from October.
I think the school district, Kitty knows, they're pretty clear about this, and Maria, the superintendent really understands that the
Right.
town board stepping up
It's
to the
just,
plate.
it's just another piece of bookkeeping for our bookkeeper.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah. Well, no,
okay, so-
actually, the bookkeeper told the crossing guard and told our police chief that he's the crossing guard is to go to the police department to get the check. He's not to walk in here to ask where his check is. That, you know, we'll process the voucher, the check will go up to the police department, and the chief will call him to tell him your check is
Okay.
here, and it will not burden us at all in the slightest. And so everything's being put in place to assure
okay.
the simplicity of this issue.
So Kitty, but though, just to, I don't know how this happened, maybe Kim, when you can sit. Starting in September, as of September, there was 1780 in there, in the crossing guard revenue. So somewhere that revenue isn't being reflected in our expense line, because the expense is showing a negative balance, but yet it says we have a balance of 1780. That 1780 might be left
Oh,
over from the
right.
village. But that I don't know. So
Okay.
actually, there's an error in our expenditures, or
Well,
So we have to
we can-
reconcile that.
We can figure it out and figure
Interesting.
out the details. Right now, we were too busy trying to figure out how to solve the
Those
problem.
just reconcile.
So anyway, if
so
everybody
there
seems
is
to...
money there, though. That's the good news.
Okay, so anyway, I mean, again, we will get the money, that's not the problem. the school district kept saying the problem is not, well, actually, I should say Marie Rice, you know, and she's been really good about this and stuff.
So are we gonna authorize you to sign an intermunicipal?
Well, what I'd
agreement?
like is, you know, what I would prefer is for you to authorize the procedure to continue until we get an MOU that the board can review, and then at that time we'll authorize me to sign it. I'd rather bring the MOU back to the
So we
board.
wanna approve continuing the status quo,
Exactly.
and then they're gonna prepare the intermunicipal cooperative agreement for us
Right.
to review and finally approve.
Right.
Okay.
Okay? Is that okay? Then this way you get to
Second.
see. Great. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. Okay, thanks, guys. And I guess to quote Joe Moriello's famous phrase, no good deed goes unpunished. Spent more time on this crossing guard than one should have
That's
to
what we
spend,
were
but,
afraid of.
you know, but at the end of the day, it's all about the kids. And so ultimately, I'm glad we were able to do this, and I'm glad the kids will be protected, and that's all that really matters. So anyway, okay, so let's get started on the budget. I am really sorry that Jean is not here. What I'd like to do is start with the B fund, then we'll go into the DB and the DA, because there's some decisions we're gonna have to make, some conversations we're gonna have to have, and then I'm gonna have to go back after some of the work we do tonight, and come back probably next week with some answers relative to the impact to the decisions we make tonight, but we can talk about that as we go. So if we start with the B fund, the easiest thing might be is to just go really quickly through. What you have here is the budget worksheets that shows last year and this year. And there's nothing really all that major in here. You know, the first page is purchasing, and it's basically what the building department, planning board. No, well, let me just start with, I did ask everybody from the beginning, all the department heads, to give me a 0% and a minus 10%. So a lot of them did give me two budgets. Some, you know, only gave one budget because they said it's not possible, you know, to give, you know, like, you know, minus 10%. And so with some of the budgets, what I did was if I had a 0 and a 10, I would look to see what they took out of their 10% budget, and then saw what I felt they could live without, and the things that I thought they were really struggling to give up just for the sake of coming up with 10% budget I put back in, but you'll see as we sort of go along. So with the building department, and again, purchasing is just papers, pens, folders, all that kind of stuff. So the building department, 1425, they went down to 1161. Planning board was 500, they went down to 400. ZBA was 125, there's not much to go down at 125. Historic preservation asks for $25. They did last year, they did again. And Moriello Pool was 900, he went down to 700. Actually, I probably moved Moriello Pool out because we moved it, this was before when we put Moriello Pool in the B fund, and then I moved it back to the A fund. Remember I explained that to you guys?
Mm-hmm.
So actually, Moriello Pool should come out.
Okay, so,
Okay,
where is CIT?
we're gonna get to that.
But there's no purchasing? The
No.
flour, or we're
No,
not
no.
purchasing flowers, but
But it doesn't matter, whatever,
Lights.
purchasing is, no, in CIT, they'll have a contractual budget. What purchasing, what this is, Kitty, is
no, so they have no purchasing requests. They aren't going to be asking us for
folders or
mulch
whatever.
and-
No,
okay.
no, they are, but that's contractual in their line.
Oh.
What this is stuff,
Office supplies.
it's all office supplies, it's all office
Okay.
supplies that all the departments ask for, and then it gets put together into one lump budget
Okay.
line, and then when we order the stuff, it gets charged back to the different lines when they put in their vouchers. We'll
Okay.
go over CIT,
All right,
okay.
it's in there somewhere. is what
Yeah,
you're
well, I'm
telling
going
me.
through line,
Okay.
actually, if you took your
So-
budget, okay, if you took your budget and you went through line by line on your budget, that's the DB, probably. Is that your B fund?
This is B.
Okay, so what's the first thing? Is it supervisor,
Street
there's
lighting.
nothing, you know, this
No,
stuff
this
does,
is B.
right, I know. So, but look over it. Where you have the first amount of money in there is probably purchasing. Everything else is 000. There shouldn't be a supervisor in the B fund.
There
but-
isn't.
I know.
don't-
We
there-
took it out, but there was last time, because you
Okay.
put $5,000 in
Is
there.
this just the backup? The backup?
This is my worksheet that got to, if you look at your budget,
Right.
okay, let me grab the budget. Okay, if you look at your budget, if you go to the B fund,
Yep.
whatever number is in there, this is what constitutes those numbers. So if you look at purchasing, you'll only see a contractual line, and that contractual line reflects these numbers, okay?
Is this what you just gave us today with the highlights?
Yeah, well, this is the B fund, because what this will highlight is you'll see the $5,000 that got omitted by
Okay.
CIT, and the $1,000 from the NCC that was in the A fund got moved to the B
Okay,
fund.
so
you
this
can use
is
for the B
new
fund.
from today.
That's new from today.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And what it basically is it is the budget that's in your, it is what's in here, Kitty? In here? It's here, but the only thing that's different is these two things that we found were omitted
Okay.
are now added into, but
Okay.
they're added, you'll see that they're added into the did she put them into the tentative? Okay, she highlighted them because they had been left out.
Okay.
Okay, so you don't need to go back to your original budget book because this is just the B fund.
So this
Yes.
is these pages
Right,
updated?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so if you follow through, what I did in terms of the presentation is, as you go down, it's in order of everything that, there's money
Okay.
in order. Here's the worksheets that correspond.
Okay.
Okay, so purchasing is no big deal. Okay, the attorney, now this is a B fund, and, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't lay in the
You know,
2012.
It didn't change, that's okay. The one you just gave us tonight didn't, well, it's
It
okay.
did change by $6,000.
But didn't change on, because here's.
Because
what
I didn't do this page, because I didn't change this page, because technically, we're doing a tentative budget. Whatever was, we
Oh, no,
changed
I'm
tonight.
sorry, this
it's
is
gonna
still a
become-
tentative, I
It's
apologize.
gonna become a preliminary, right?
You're
And so
right.
until after we get
You're
through
right.
going through this, and you guys decide what you want for the preliminary budget, that's when we'll lay the numbers in, and then I'll go
Yeah.
back
'Cause then it
and do
becomes
this.
preliminary. Yeah,
And
I'm with
part of why I said that, part of why I said that some of the decisions we make tonight, I'm probably still have to go back and do some work, because some decisions we make tonight will, you know, depending on what we do with snow plowing and different things, then I have to go back, look at some expenses, see what kind of fund balance we're gonna really have, see how it's gonna impact taxes, and come back to you and say, guys, this is the implications you want. So, you know, we'll have to work through some of the details, okay? With the attorney, let me get that out, because there's a significant change in this line versus last year. Actually, I don't have to get it out, it's probably right on here. Why didn't we have it in the order?
They're not,
She said it's not in the order of what I had on my last budget sheet. Okay. We'll make it work no matter what. So I'm just looking at
No, go
Is that
ahead.
okay?
That's fine.
Okay. Am I hitting the,
No, that's fine.
did I? I'm gonna just cover your stuff for a second,
No,
okay?
you're good.
Okay, when I get to the B fund. You had significant money in the attorney and engineering line in the past for the B fund. And what that was, you had like close to like 40,000 and 60,000. Here it is. Okay. Oh, great, it's not here either. Terrific.
Wait, for
You-
last year's?
Yeah, You'll see,
So attorney, we had 63,000.
right. You had, okay, so you had 63,000 in the attorney line, and then you also had money in the planning board line. What that money was, really was mostly, was the money for the developers. It was escrow money. It's money, it was escrow money. That money should not, we shouldn't be raising taxes on the taxpayers
numbers that are
for,
associated with revenue.
which is associated with revenue that, from developers. And so that money, A, should not be reflected there. That money in the past, and Kelly, Patty, Mike Colomano, and myself will be getting together, because one of the major problems you have right now, and it's not a good situation, but you have right now in the B fund checking account, all of the developers' money is commingled into that account with our tax money.
Well, we're
And
gonna change
so,
that.
as we write checks, pull money out for the developer to pay, you know, whatever attorney, you know, the Lithgow, you know, whatever, we're taking that money out. But at the end of the year, if there's money left, it goes into the fund balance. And if we decide to take that fund balance money and use it to reduce taxes, we're using developers' money, not taxpayers' money. And so that money should not be commingled.
That's by way of example, by the way, right?
Exactly. Okay, so in other words, so that money should be in a trusted agency, and that's exactly how it should be done. And so Patty and Kelly and I have talked. I've talked with Dave Clauser. I've talked with Joe Moriel, George Lithgow, to make sure that they're very aware that in the future, you know how sometimes we've sat and looked at, you've done vouchers and you've, you know, oh, this is escrow, this isn't, that's not.
Right.
You shouldn't have to do that. You
Right.
should have, if you're gonna approve a voucher, that says Park Point, X amount of money, fine, and that gets sent over, it gets taken out of that escrow account. If it gets down to a certain amount of money, until it gets replenished, the attorney or the engineer does not bill against it
Right.
at all. And, and that's the way it needs to be done, and it needs to be in a trusted agency. What we have right now, what you have, and you've seen from what Kelly did, there are, like the project up at Plesser's property, there's money that I guess is gonna have to be written off as a bad debt, because the escrow account wasn't kept up, because it wasn't managed properly. We paid all these expenses to the lawyers and the engineer, and the escrow account never got replenished, and guess what? We taxpayers paid for the engineer and the lawyer for a project out of Plesser's property that didn't even ever end up happening. So we got, like, double billed in a sense.
So all we should be budgeting for is a potential shortfall, that's it.
Well, all we did, so the reason why you just see $26,000 in there versus 60, like Jeff said last year, was instead of wiping it completely clean, there are times that, like, for example, like Dave, myself, and George Lithgow will get together to talk about, say, where we go with water and sewer in the town outside the village and how we can develop a water and sewer system. That doesn't get charged back to any particular project. That's a town expense that we've taken on to talk about, creating our infrastructure. Maybe, if we want to talk about like a senior overlay or something, in the town outside the village, that might not be to a specific project. And so I brought the $60,000. Gene and I went back and looked at a lot of the bills.
Where is this in here? Because
It's not, it's not on.
I don't know what,
There's a couple pages missing.
yeah, I don't,
Well,
maybe
we
she just
we
gave us.
have the original tentative budget.
That's where
Because
I'm going
you
back
know what,
to.
you know what I think she did?
Okay.
I'm sorry, Kitty. You probably do need to go to your budget thing. She probably only took the one page of the B fund to reflect where those two things fall,
Okay, all
okay?
right, so
that's only,
let's,
so go
okay.
back to your,
So
if you go back to
I
this.
appreciate your explanation here, but, I don't have the line
Just
I'm
go
gonna-
to the
I'm gonna-
tentative budget.
I'm gonna go to you right here.
Is it 1420?
It's 14B, it's right here.
Which one was, it's
It's
fourteen
B,
twenty?
Okay.
1420.4, it's right up
Okay.
there.
And then if you go down, Kitty, it's 1440 is the engineer.
Right, which you'll get to.
Okay, just want to see, so,
Let's go up to,
because, all right, so the
Yes, right here. Start with this
2013,
one.
right, okay. So the 2013 preliminary, we had,
I have the old one, here's the new one.
Same number.
14, 20.
So Kevin, is it
We had
unreasonable?
66,000.
You get $66,000,
Right.
which is insane.
Okay, so now the preliminary would take it down to 26?
We
is
took
what
it
you're
down to
saying?
26 because
Okay.
that's more than enough to.
I understand your explanation, I just wanted to
Yeah,
see exactly
yeah.
where I should write it in.
Right,
Okay,
okay,
thank you.
so that's what that,
Very clear.
okay, so that's what that is.
And Kevin, is it unreasonable for a legal office, though, could they send those bills then directly to the building department?
Well, they do
Like,
go,
could they send them directly to, so you would get your bill?
This is-
So you would get we would get our bill when we asked George Lithgow or.
but they do, but they go to the planning board and building department, they go to the planning, they go to the planning board, they go to there, after they're reviewed, and Mike Calamano signs off on it, or Stacy signs on it, then it comes to us, and then you guys do the vouchers
Yeah,
and
but I
stuff.
think Jeff's talking about better segregation of the bills. We should require our professionals to segregate the
I
bills.
did, I've already talked to them about
Oh,
that.
they will,
Oh, we've,
and that's not an unreasonable request.
no, we've
they
already
won't
talked
do
about it,
that.
it's already being done. I've already asked them
So
to
it's
start
gonna,
doing.
we won't get one
Exactly.
5-page bill where
Right.
we have to figure out.
That's
We
right,
should never see
that's right.
any project bills.
Well, you will see when you do the vouchers.
Until we have their own
Until we, until we.
Well, no, Kevin, you'll
until
see when you
we-
do the voucher, because you still have to approve it,
We still have to approve the money,
Right.
even though it's coming out of
the escrow,
escrow.
and we still have to write the check.
We still have to approve it.
Right, okay. So 26,000, and actually, if you look at it, you'll see 10,000 is really for consulting with the attorney. 8,000 is what Stacy believes she wanted to put in for building department defense if something comes forward, and there's 8,000 for the ZBA. So that's the 26,000 versus the 60,000, right, Jeff? Is that what was in
Okay.
there? You knew it was some 60,000.
Yeah, it was,
66.
Yeah, 66, which
yes,
is,
60, yeah.
yeah, which is insane, which is part of the reason why we
Alright.
probably have so much money in the fund balance in the B fund, which we'll get to, because we've been overtaxing,
All right.
but anyway, regardless, so,
Next page is
Engineer,
engineer.
same
but-
exact
but-
thing.
But no line.
no, it's, I'm sorry,
The engineer is 522-1440.
That's where this one goes?
it's right,
522, say that again?
522-1440,
Hey, Jean is here.
000.
You'll see, Kitty, if I didn't write it on the top, because I was
It's the
already-
same.
It's right there.
It's going,
You see right here where it says engineer contractual, 522,
is that the
1440?
new one from today or the old one?
It doesn't matter, it's, the number will be the same.
But the one that you gave us today doesn't,
No, I know, because I just realized when you were
I
doing
know,
that.
but I just want to
Don't
get.
don't look at the new one till we get to those lines. Go
Okay,
back, do you have your budget here?
I do.
Okay, so go, the first thing you saw was purchasing, next you see attorneys, and then you see engineer next.
Right,
Okay, that's 522-1440 is the number.
okay, so that's going down from 60,000 also to 26,000. Okay.
No, actually, yes,
Yes, it is.
yes. Okay, and it's the same exact logic.
Okay,
What's the
Okay.
total on that one gonna be?
It's gonna be from 40,000 down to 26,000.
from 60,000 to 26.
I think the,
60,000 you have in there,
in the engineer.
That was in the tentative.
tentative.
Mm,
2013 tentative, you have 60,000 in there.
no, in 2012,
Oh, 2012 was 3148, but
no, it was
2013
45. Right here,
Susan.
45,000.
Susan? 2013 tentative.
I'm not looking at 2013 tentative. 2012 adopted was 45, and we're going down to 26.
Well,
Right
you
here,
had
see?
in tentative, you had 60.
Where, what line, Kitty?
I don't know what you're
No,
looking at.
AA 522-1440, 400,
You're looking at the A fund, Kitty.
400
You're
is
in
the
the B
total.
fund.
We're doing the B
Sorry.
fund.
And
Sorry.
and 2012
Sorry,
adopted
sorry,
was
sorry.
60.
So go, Kitty,
Yep,
go
gotcha,
to,
gotcha.
okay, so go to the B fund.
There you are. There.
Okay?
Got it.
Okay, everybody?
Mine?
Yeah, this is your
Thank you.
worksheets that we're gonna go through.
What's
Okay.
next?
Okay, so next is
So there-
public access.
1650?
Okay, now, public access, you'll see, you went from 11,135 down to 4,590, and that's because last year, pretty much the expense for the public access was split equally between the A fund and the B fund, but we actually do more meetings in the A fund than the B fund, so it wasn't a fair split. It should really be 2/3 in the A fund, because we do 2 town board meetings, we do 2 police commission meetings, we do the joint town village meeting, and some extra meetings. The B fund is only a planning board meeting twice a month. So the fact that they were split equally, and then what they also did was split the public access coordinator fee. They also split like in half, and so it was a
So
real.
the allocations,
So the allocation is correctly done, according to myself and Jean's belief of how it should be correctly done.
based upon the number of meetings.
Based on the
That's
number
your-
of meetings
That's your
and
metric.
the metric is the number of meetings and billing appropriately for the right number of meetings. And when I went back and researched last year's number, it was completely, the B fund paid for more public access than they actually got.
Okay.
So that's what this reflects, okay?
Let me go above that real quick. Central
Sure.
Communications, I see there's a line for that. What's, It's not
It's right behind,
just a, oh, I'm sorry, it's out of order.
I'm missing a page.
what, Jeannie?
I'm missing a page on
You're
my
missing 2
B.
pages.
No,
Oh,
this is,
yeah,
no,
that's
go back to
missing
your,
a lot
go
of
back to your
pages.
budget. No, this is, all this is we ended up, the
Okay.
CIT number that got
Okay.
misplaced, and this is just that one page to be replaced, okay?
Okay.
So, okay.
Okay.
So,
I
okay,
don't-
bring-
Central
I don't
Communications.
have a budget yet.
Okay.
so
Yes,
This-
Jean, sweetheart, here,
I wasn't there
I know,
at that meeting.
I know, so here's your budget.
Thank
You're welcome, because I have an extra, I brought extras, okay? And actually, we probably have some
I
extras for
hate
the
to
public.
come late and make a whole bunch of trouble.
You're not, we're really happy you're here. Okay, but let me pull out one for myself, and
I can share.
I
See-
brought
see how
extras
easy
for
I
the
am?
public if they wanted. I've got one right here, make sure it's the right one. Yep. And I have an extra if anybody wants to follow along.
I
Justin,
knew that was
Justin,
coming.
if you're here thinking that we're going to be talking about the police budget tonight, we
We're
are
not.
not.
No,
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Okay, let me just get to,
Central Communications is next.
yeah, Central Communications was 1,000, it is 1,000.
What is
I
Central
forget what's with
Communications?
Central, is that the phones, right? That's the phones,
Phones?
right, Jeannie? That's our phones?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the phones. Okay,
That's
so
our
we didn't change.
phone. That's for the physical.
Just for the B fund, just for like a set, for ZBA, building department assessors, for their phone bills.
For their phone bills, okay.
Not
For
the,
the-
the assessor's act, so
Yeah,
it's
right,
just the
right.
building department, planning and
Right.
zoning.
So this is just the phone bill for the year.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Okay, next is printing and mailing. Again, this is the same thing with all the departments we do.
1670,
The number?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I just stopped writing them on the top when we got to the B fund.
Very good.
Yeah, I know. The
Okay.
522-1670, if you want to write on your worksheets. And again, that's the same thing where each department figures out how much printing or mailing they think they need, and then we take it and put it in one line.
So.
And you could
the-
see-
The printing and mailing, do we do the printing here? Is this just photocopying here?
It depends. I mean, it's like the cost of mailing, it could be the cost of photocopying, but sometimes there's also printing things that are done.
But we have a meter here, that's how we do our postage.
You,
Postage is
Rosanna has
through
a
meter.
yeah,
And she has a separate one, and the police and everyone's got their own.
okay. So it's, what, $25 difference from last year, but it's $25.
Okay.
Okay. Central data.
Because rates are
That's
going
what
up.
the central data is? That's the computers, right?
Computers.
Yeah, and this is May.
Yeah.
Right, the central data, this is 3,000 last year, 3,000 this year. That's for our computers, made, for May for the computer. Now, we are going to have to deal with the controller's report and the serious problems we have with our computers and our security system, and we're gonna have to do some contracts and whatever. But hopefully, we have 25,000 in this year's budget for the web and stuff, so I'm gonna come back, at a meeting really shortly to talk about how we need to move forward with that, because we
Would
can't
that
really,
be in the
but
A
anyway.
fund, wouldn't it?
What?
Would that be in the A?
We do have money in aid. This is just,
I'm
But
just saying
wouldn't-
For the computer.
yeah, but that is, the 25,000 is in the aid fund, it's for the
Right,
web and
except
stuff.
for the building department.
Right,
Right.
All right.
okay. Okay, next is building department. Stacy gave me a 10% decrease and a 0%. Her 10% really did sort of really gut it, because that department runs pretty lean and mean. And so, I sort of did a combination. So you'll see, the employees, their longevity and all that type of stuff. She needed some money for some computer stuff, her UPS. I didn't change anything. She has her, blah, 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 blah. She actually, in the minus 10% budget, had taken out whatever reference books she needed. And she said, well, they're really valuable. If you're gonna have me cut the budget 10%, I'll take those out. I'm not gonna, for $400, not have our building inspector get whatever reference material she needs to keep herself up to date on building codes. That's like what,
No, I
what's
think-
that phrase? Pound wise,
Cutting
penny
off your
foolish, or whatever it
nose
is.
to spite
What?
your face.
Exactly.
Cutting off your
You know,
nose to spite your face.
So I put the $400 back in. Did we take the 1,025 out?
It's circled.
Yeah, I might have circled that to take it out. I don't, well, probably not, because I'd have to double check and add
No,
those numbers.
subscriptions, I
We
think
kept-
we left in
We
it.
kept that in? Okay, the phones we didn't touch. Professional consultant sheet, I actually don't have her attached summary here. I have it here if you guys want to read it. She had really taken it down from the, let me see if I can turn to it.
Well, yeah.
I
you-
put some
you
money back in
the
'cause
phone-
she-
Yeah, it's all back in.
I put some money back in because it was actually for for the engineer, I think, to review certain things before they even went out. And it just, again, penny wide, pound foolish, put the money back in. Her auto
That's
repair,
another way to say it.
pound wide, penny foolish?
Yes. Cut off your nose to spite your face.
You like that
Penny
better?
wide, pound foolish. No, it's both good ways.
Oh, okay.
They both
Okay,
work.
and the 125 for her boots. So the 22,326 is probably still less than her, let me get to her building department.
3620,
Okay, she gave me one budget that was 1680 and her,
128,069 total
let me just see her.
from last year.
Last year was 114? What's her line?
128.
128,069.
No, it's showing down here, 24,291.
No, but you're talking about the total?
I'm talking about for the building department, if you go down to the bottom line, it shows 2012 on the worksheet.
It
Build
shows
worksheet?
24,292 for last year on that line.
Right, and we're giving, and it's 22,326.
Right.
So it's still below last year.
Overall, slightly higher.
No, overall slightly lower. Last year was
yeah.
24, we're doing 22,326,
I mean,
right?
for the total department.
Yeah.
Slightly higher.
Slightly lower.
No, the whole department.
Oh, the whole
is
department, I'm
slightly-
sorry. Okay, but I'm just looking, how come,
Higher by
Big,
2,000.
her,
Higher by a couple $1,000.
okay.
right,
Okay.
3,000, it was, her total budget was 128,000 last year.
Does she have the demo state, does she have the?
It's here. It's in personnel.
In
Oh, here.
Kelly. who has
Okay, yes, I'm
earned
sorry,
it.
I was looking, I'm sorry, I'm
No
looking at the,
problem.
I'm looking at the contractual number that went down, I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's
Okay.
not bad.
Okay, so that's the building inspector. Everybody okay,
So
building department?
obviously, what we'll do next year is we'll review our fee structure out of her department and make adjustments where we see necessary.
Well, we can actually, we should honestly, I think we probably should be doing that before maybe the organizational meeting where we
Because you
adopt
set
fees.
at-
We set
you adopt
fees.
Right.
fees in January.
So if you want to
Maybe we have her
review,
start working on that now for us
Sure,
then, all right?
sure.
And see if we, obviously, we'll make up this difference easily,
Mhm.
all right?
Mhm. Okay, then if you go to demo of safe building, she took that from 6,000 down to 5,000. But if, I don't think we probably spent any money in that line this year.
But it's also, we have to wash in revenue of 5,000, because they have to pay for it,
Right,
right?
right, yeah, so there's revenue.
Actually, we didn't spend any money
We
on
didn't
that.
spend any money, so when we brought it down, Gene and I felt comfortable with it. But again, there's a revenue line to offset that.
We're
Spend a
sitting in
little
one of the
bit.
buildings.
Spend $30.
We're sitting in one of the buildings.
Yes, actually, we're gonna spend the $5,000 to demolish this building.
While we're in it.
January 1st. January 1st, guess what? We're gonna have our organizational meeting,
Somewhere else.
someplace else.
On the lawn.
P&G's.
Okay.
Okay,
Next,
okay,
I was hungry anyway, so let's just go. We'll take the camera.
okay. Other public safety emergency. This went from 4,000 up to 4,600, but that's the cost of the repeater that we get, half of it gets reimbursed by the village. We get the bill, and they pay us half of it. But just as a point of interest, in the finance committee, as we've been doing the joint town-village budget, this number went down by $2,000 because we won't need two repeaters if we're one government. Okay?
So
So
when they
this
pass-
might be the last time we have
when
to
they
pay
pay
for two
us
repeaters
half, where does the money go?
into revenue. It's
It's
reflected,
booked on the revenue,
On the B side?
and we have
on the
revenue,
B side.
and we have revenue in the B side to reflect it.
Okay, so
Okay.
it's consistent.
Yep. Okay, next is Historic Preservation Commission. And this is what they asked for. And the reason why their line is up,
7,520?
the reason why yes, the reason why their line is up is because of a grant. So you'll see, they have a $15,000 grant for online mapping, but it's also in the revenue side. So actually,
Right, so
they're
the
really
budget
going,
is $3,400.
right,
Last year was 12,750.
right, of
And
which you,
And part of that looks like, I can't tell if any of that was
That-
grant though.
that $9,000 was for that
Video.
video that they showed
Right.
us.
Right.
But, and was that grant money? I don't
Yeah.
think that was
That
grant
was all
money.
grant money.
Yeah.
That was
So-
100% grant.
So that was the video that they showed us, okay, and now they got another grant for 15, okay, and so that comes back in as revenue.
Okay.
Okay, and as you can see, nothing else really went up, other than, well, they put $500 in for site updates and server maintenance.
Josh's celebration line remained the same at
No,
500?
no, that's in the A fund. What this is, we're doing the B fund. Last year, you guys had $500 in the A fund for volunteer party with the village, and then you had $500 in the B fund for volunteer party with the village. And I don't think you did the volunteer party with the village last year, did you?
I think they did something at Moriallo.
Uh-huh.
You have $300 and
Okay.
still have 300.
So Gene and I took it out of the A fund, because if we do it with the village, we don't need $500 in the A fund. We put $500 in here. I think we have money this year, and one of the things I'd like to suggest and I'm gonna put it down, volunteer recognition, is at the joint town village meeting, that maybe we plan a volunteer recognition event, since the money's there, and it's been
Have we even
allocated.
spent any from last year?
You mean this year or last year?
We have $300 we haven't spent, I think it's.
We have $300 that we haven't spent.
What?
We have $300 we haven't spent.
Yeah,
Right
and you have
now,
500,
2012.
and you have $500 this year, and you have 500, actually you have $500 in the A fund, and you have $500 in the B fund.
Right, the B funds has three, actually.
Would you have a
What?
barbecue or something?
Well, in the past, I mean, there's different things that
We
been,
used to do something that was just about the volunteers.
Should.
And we would buy really fun little things. But we would call up each committee
Yeah.
and give them some,
We did
a moment of
couple- did you know those-
recognition.
you know
It was
those,
a nice event.
You know those cups that you see on the mugs that we have around
Yep.
here that have the town of Newport seal? One year we did those and gave everybody a cup with a seal on it.
The
We've done-
best year was when Rebecca Rotzler and I got Ira Margolis to get us a discount on, you know, those little bicycle lights, LED blinking lights you put on your cap? And we gave one of those, and, I mean, people were coming back for seconds on those. But you know, it's just, the barbecue was really fun and lovely, but there was never a moment where we said, thank you for volunteering for your community.
Well, usually what happens is we have either here or the village.
Right.
All the committees come, all the volunteers come, and we
From the
sit here and we
town and the
acknowledge them, we
village.
buy a
Let's
cake
do
or
it this
something.
year.
So that's why I wanted to put it on the agenda for our joint town village meeting. We have the money, let's do it. And so we put $500 into the
Good.
B fund, took it out of the A fund, and we'll just make sure we do it again next year.
Nice.
Okay, so that's what that is. The planning board. This reflects Kelly, who's been absolutely fantastic. I don't think anybody could say that this woman is not worth every penny that we pay her. And you'll see in contractual, see now in here you see that they also have planning board consultants for $20,000. You know, so they're also reflecting money for consultants in here.
So you pulled out all the revenue associated with the developer's items from last year,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So last year, this number was 175,330 for the total line, and now it's 32, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
That makes much more sense for
And then-
accounting reasons.
And in that prior year, we spent 129,24 out of it, and we have no way of knowing right now.
Mhm. So that has to be,
That's through
Reconcile.
September.
That's
Yeah.
through September, yeah, I'm going to prior year, so I'm going a year
Yeah.
prior to
yeah,
that.
that
So
all
I'm
has
gonna
to
get
be,
through
it's
September.
all gotta be reconciled, but it's going, and it's gonna be worked on,
Yeah.
probably starting next week or something, but it's just,
So, explain who the planning board consultants that are non-reimbursable, who's that?
well, that is, probably for again, probably for some, where if you saw in the other line, there was just sort of consulting fees, which was somewhat more there for, some of the stuff we do in the B fund, like the water, the sewer and all that.
So we kept
and
in
then-
100 and 400 in the current budget, and the rest of it from the old budget was moved.
Yeah, what Kitty's asking is, that
Well,
still would be, that's the-
non-reimbursable would be someone who doesn't have an escrow. So you come in, you apply for a permit, and to get, you know, the review process, but you're not going as far as creating the escrow. To get a preliminary
we
review.
get Dave Clauser for
Mhm.
free? Is-
Only very preliminary.
Okay,
And then when you reach the point that you need to determine an escrow, which I'm not really certain if that's right in your code book, when the planning board determines that you go to an escrow account, and then there should be a formula,
Actually, we
and then
should
it
know
should
that.
go into T&A. Yeah, it's probably in the
well,
code.
well, it's also probably, I mean, it's also there for, like, I'm sure if Mike Calamano or Kelly or somebody has to call George Lithgow
professional,
to
yeah.
ask a question about how to handle something or
Mhm.
what to do, that money's there, and you're not gonna charge that to the developer. But I mean, I think some of this actually ends up getting reimbursed ultimately. Like, so for example, right now, we have a situation with, what's the name of the place, Jeff, that, the nursing home on Jansen Road that's moving over to?
Blues, I mean.
Oh, the old Blues, okay, the old Blues, whatever the name, so, what?
Mountain View.
Mountain View.
Nursing.
So for example, right now, Mountain View was really interested in, they're moving over to South Putt. Originally, they went over to Lloyd, and thank goodness they didn't get treated well there, and they came back here, and I met with them, and I said, we're not losing you, you know, what are you, crazy and stuff? And so there were some initial meetings that Dave Clauser had to like review certain things and certain opportunities to get them to know that they could stay in Newport and what their options were, and now they're probably in about a week and a half, you know, from basically going in front of the planning board with an application. Now, what we did do is right now, we have been approving the expenses for Dave for those meetings, but what I did do though was I asked Patty to track every bill that we've paid for those pre-planning meetings. So if when they do open their project and we get an escrow account, we could bill back that money. So,
Is that?
Wow.
so even though it says non-reimbursable right now, guess what?
Okay.
It will
So
get
we could call
reimbursed.
this economic development.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Okay, so that's
I have a
what,
question for you,
Sure.
Susan Jean. I can see from our, through September accounting that we overspent on line 8020400 by 13 grand through September. Is
Yeah.
that because we didn't properly account for some of those developer expenses, or are we gonna get reimbursed and haven't billed for it yet?
I'm gonna go with 8020400. Is that possible that we took legal expenses out of there from lawsuits?
I do not think so.
I think this is that whole escrow
I think it's the
mess.
escrow thing.
Right, well,
I think it's the
if
escrow
you,
thing.
if you look further, okay, so under 8020430 and 455, you have 55,000 and 65,000, okay, and yet you only have 30,000 and 26,000 charged. So a piece of the regular .4, your sub-account is 430 for the attorney, sub-account 455 for the engineer. So commingled in the plain 400 might not be like office supplies for the planning board at $36,000, but some of that 13,000 may be attorney and engineering costs that didn't, because we don't, I have yet to find, and I did the vouchers again, and I had a heck of a time. The escrows, I have not figured out yet. I left a note. I can't, for the life of me, figure out they're being charged to the B fund, and they're not being pulled out, and they were the same ones that were on our list from Kelly, and they should be segregated and charged to an escrow account, not the B fund.
And that's gonna,
And
that is, the
I
county,
understand you're gonna rectify that. So our B fund balance, there's no clue as to what it truly is.
well,
Because
We're
this
gonna-
money is in here, the escrow,
So
I
somebody's
believe.
gonna have
We're
to go
gonna-
back and audit and then readjust to
yeah,
figure out.
and that's going to be
That's
done,
what-
but I can show
okay.
you our B fund.
All right,
Well, we'll get to that, okay?
so
What
I
you-
understand we'll avoid this problem.
Oh, yes, yeah, absolutely. You won't even see that. That's why we pulled out that money. I told you we pulled out the, okay?
Right, and we took out all the sub-accounts.
Right.
You see, it only went under .4.
Right,
There's no money in .410, .427, .430,
everything
.4.
else separate,
right.
separate
Mhm.
ledger,
Yep, yep,
the whole
yep.
deal.
Everything.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Now, but 410 though, but if you look at like the 89410, right?
Mhm.
Is that the one you're looking at?
820.
Oh, 820, okay.
No, actually, just so you do notice,
Well, no,
Well,
I'm
actually,
sorry,
listen-
82410, I apologize. So wouldn't contractual, wouldn't that be
Right.
our expense for wetlands inspector?
well, you have right now 3,000 that you allocated. You have 8,770.50 that's been spent. We didn't put money in, and we can talk about it as a board,
But we'll
But
leave
right-
it 20,
but right now, we don't have, the wetlands law
Right,
has
so
been
you're gonna
appealed,
have
so.
surplus.
so leave the 2,200 surplus in there. But if you took out that sub-account, then you can't. We still need a place to pay, a place.
Well, actually, right now, we don't have a wetlands law.
No, I
So-
agree.
So, to,
But we can
budget
keep
for
that-
a,
we'll keep that line.
well, we keep the line
If
there.
the
and
line
then-
sits there, yeah.
And we have,
well, so
So
you
Jean,
could,
did you?
we have,
trans-
Okay.
let me put it to you this way, we have so much money, we have enough money in the B fund, that I'm not worried about it.
Well, you,
Okay.
so
Okay.
we could appropriate $2,000 towards the wetlands inspector should the whole litigation and everything be resolved within the year 2013.
So did you just moved that
We-
to the 400, you just moved that to the 400 line?
No,
though,
we-
then?
we actually didn't-
Actually, no.
no, we didn't put
just
any-
felt that
The balance.
while
of it.
we're in the process
No, we didn't
of
put any-
litigation,
We didn't put anything.
that we didn't have a wetlands law, and therefore we wouldn't be producing any of the free wetlands inspections
it's-
within the year. But Susan's right, that as a board, if what you want to do is put $2,000 in the wetlands inspector contractual line, we can do that. That's okay.
We just chose not to do it because we don't have a law, and we felt that to allocate money for a position that we don't have right now, it was just what we did. It's up to the board what they want to do.
You know, the big problem is this 2% cap thing.
Mhm.
And if we take it out now, it's
Mhm.
just gonna be that much harder to get it back in next year, especially since you've done such a great job of getting that
Well,
line down.
I-
And who knows, it may be, what if somebody wants to get their property inspected, even absent a wetlands law? Is that not a service? If they want to get a delineation?
Well, they'd have to pay for it then, because there are still the federal
Right.
Oh.
and state wetlands. So it would be on them, should the planning
Right,
board
right.
see that there's a wetlands, it would be on them, up to them, and that would be, then they would probably, for example, use Spider.
Mhm.
The engineer would go out, the surveyor would go out, they would call Spider, so it would be all part of the developer's fee or
But
the
what if it was
homeowner's
just a
fee.
homeowner? I mean, that's basically the service that we were offering, was
Right.
saying, if you're a
But I thought
homeowner.
the service
Right,
was,
so
it was
homeowner
free
Yeah.
based on when the wetlands law required a wetlands inspection, and so that first inspection was free. And that's
Any
what we
homeowner-
are paying for.
Right. Any homeowner,
Oh,
whether or
can
not
get
they
it for
have.
free?
Yes.
Oh,
Right.
oh, I thought it was just the
Any
first.
homeowner
It
was-
is the first
Oh.
one.
Any
You can't
homeowner
keep
was
having him
entitled
back
to
and
free.
saying,
Has
but-
it changed? Yes, it's
Yeah.
one time.
but it's a one-time free inspection, which, is a service we could offer, if we kept it in for 2,000. Obviously, we guessed about right at the amount of
Right,
time people would be using it.
right.
But it will,
So what makes you comfortable, 2,000 or 3,000?
2,500.
So what does the rest of the board say?
Well, Kitty, we only expended a third of it last year.
We actually
This year.
spent $585.
No,
877.
877.50.
877 to date.
It's, and because you have 162 encumbered also.
Actually, Kevin, if you look at the worksheet here, it shows
It's about a third.
2012 adopted and 2012 actual as of 9/17/12. It's easy to look on here,
We
actually.
gotta go back to that now because it picked up, right? This is through September. these sheets.
And this runs through
Right.
September 9/17/12.
Okay.
It's on here, so it might just be easier to look at this because it's
Good.
summarized. So it's really, guys, up to you, whatever you guys want to do.
I floated 2,500, how about 2,000?
Are you okay with that, Kevin? Okay, so let's just put the 2,000 in and let's just
I'm
move on.
okay with that.
I'm
Okay.
good with 2,000.
Okay, so we have the 2,000 in. Okay, you'll see over here that Scenic Byway and Planning Federation in for 350. Those were in the A fund, in some line in the A fund, but the Scenic Byway, the village is part of the Scenic Byway, and the Planning Federation, they've got their own planning board, so those should have never been in the A fund. We moved them over to the B fund, and so that's $350 that we just put into the planning board line to be reflected in the right line. Okay? Any more questions on planning board?
Okay.
Okay? Zoning board
So
Uh,
that number 22,807.
will go up to 24.
4,807. Okay.
No, it'll be 22,807 and 410 will be 2,000, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes,
I'm on this.
you're
one.
right, you're right.
And then it'll be 34,947.
Yep.
And we'll put in 2,000 in the 410, right, Jean?
Right, for
Yeah, right,
wetlands
right,
inspector,
right.
specific,
Right,
if you want to be specific.
okay. ZBA, if you, I could read you Linda's thing about, actually, I'll read this quick. Well, this is partly by her not giving me a 0% budget. I mean, a 10% decreased budget, and when you look at her budget, you'll see. But I'd like to read, I just would like to read this one thing that she wrote, because I think it's nice to read. Kelly O'Donnell is the most efficient secretary we have ever had. She has more than proved her worth and actually deserves a much higher raise than the one proposed. It would be a shame to lose her. The slight increase in this line is compensated for by a reduction in the amount budgeted for public notices. The cost of public notices should be taken out of the applicant's fees, which would have already been paid. Kelly and I have some questions about the track that the fee money takes, which I do too, and so does Jean. It should be going back into the ZBA planning board budgets, in which case this item need not even be budgeted for. Perhaps the applicant should pay Ulster Publishing directly, like they do for PDQ, when they pick up their signage that needs to be posted. This does not answer the question of the money trail as far as an applicant fees that are collected and where that money gets credited. We should speak about this in person. The Wilma Wright Sunny Park Point project will be coming up, and we may incur unexpected costs that cannot be anticipated. I am assuming that the payment for the ZBA attorney on this project will also come out of the Wilma Wright Planning Board escrow account, but there may still be other costs. And actually, we need to be aware of that and we need to talk about the fact that we actually don't charge applicants for for the ZBA. So let's discuss that in a second, because the ZBA will not be submitting a second budget with a 10% reduction. We've always kept our budget as tight as possible, and there's no room for flexibility if we're to cover our expenses in the coming year. However, it is important for the town board to realize that many of our expenses are covered by the applicant fees that we collect rather than the residents' taxes. As an example, as of August 29, 2012, the ZBA has collected $2,000 in applicant fees for the year. Consider this our 10% reduction. As was expressed before, we are interested in tracing this money from the time it's collected until its final expenditure. So I think we're all interested in tracing the money appropriately and correctly. The one thing that I do know is that we don't, as a town, charge the applicant for the attorney's time when they come in for a variance.
Even if it's part of the planning process?
Would they go from the ZBA, from the planning board over to the ZBA?
That doesn't make any sense.
Oh, right.
Well,
Right.
they probably do an escrow account when so in other words, for like Hampton Inn. Okay, when the Hampton Inn went in front of the ZBA for as long as they went for it, yes, there was probably an escrow account that came out of the planning board, and that was taken care of, because I don't think we covered that cost by any means. But if you go in for a deer fence variance, the applicant doesn't get charged for it, and we pick up the cost for the attorney. Now, in other communities, they do actually have a law where the applicant pays for that expense, so.
Although, I'll have to ask you as an attorney,
Again?
again, don't bill us. The whole point of the ZBA is it gives relief, it gives a person to then, for lack of a better word, challenge a decision that was made.
I don't have a problem with a deer fence example,
Okay.
but if it's part of a development and those variances are required for the planning board to move ahead with their planning,
Mhm.
then it should be paid for out of escrow.
Is that fair, though, under our
Sure, it
system?
has to be.
Oh, Jeff, we could never have, the cost of, look how long Hampton Inn went through their process.
No, I
with
know,
the ZBA.
I went to the ZBA, I
I'm
was
saying,
there, yeah.
Now, if we had to pick up the cost for the
But how do
lawyer
we know
and the
that we
engineer,
didn't, Susan?
What?
How do we know that we didn't?
Oh, because you probably would have seen that bill, oh my God.
Well, I do
I'll
remember
go back
seeing
and
a
check.
lot of
They were
bills.
huge. They
I
were
remember
huge
seeing a
bills. I
lot of
think we did
bills,
pay
and
for
I
it.
can't
there was
imagine.
no
You think so?
dedicated ZBA
I don't
escrow,
know.
so now I'm
Well, we
getting
should go
nervous
check that
about
because
But
that.
I'm just wondering though, Kevin, is that part of our, this is a bigger question, obviously, is that part of our, isn't something that's an appeal process part of our judicial system to give anyone access to appeal a decision? So I guess I need a definition, if it's part of a development, no decision has been made, or they're actually challenge our current laws, and who should pay for that?
Actually, they're asking for an exception.
Right, a
They're asking
variance.
for an exception
Right.
in the form of a variance in order to complete their project, which is a lot different than somebody coming in being denied on their fence
This is a
application, going to the ZBA for an appeal. I think it's a lot different.
Okay,
Because
And
they
that was
could,
saying
they
that
could
Yeah.
okay.
build their project in conformity with zoning
Right,
and not have
that's
to
right.
go to the ZBA.
That's right.
Right.
That's
But they
right.
want an exception.
Right.
But I want to
to
just
the
go, yeah, that's
zoning.
exactly right.
That's
Which I was gonna
the
say, even like a fence, you know, you might, there's a law that says you can only build a fence so high, but some people wanna build the fence higher, so they go to the ZBA for whatever, well, why, I don't see why any of us should be paying for the ability for somebody to say, I want a higher fence, so I'm gonna go to the ZBA, why should we be paid for that attorney fee?
Well, does an attorney need to be present for that, though, at all times,
Well,
though?
we do
Is
it.
that a decision?
I'm sure that the town is represented by an attorney when there's an appeal like that for a fence.
So, well, anyway.
What it is, the attorney is present
I
always.
I do know that in other towns, that, because I've talked to other people, other supervisors and stuff about this, and I think I've also talked with Dave, and it's my understanding that there are towns that, maybe even the town of Ulster recently did it, that they put a local law in place that the ZBA fees for professional services gets charged back.
Okay, so that's conceptually. Now let's deal with reality.
Well, that's why I'm asking,
Okay, so in reality, how many appeals do we have to the ZBA in any given year?
We meet every,
Three.
in excess of 30, probably.
30?
20?
The
24?
ZBA?
They meet every month, and there's 2 or 3
No,
people
they-
on it.
I don't think they do meet every month. I think
Yes,
they,
they do.
Let me ask you a
They've only
question.
You
skipped
think
how
they
many?
do?
Yeah, they
Every
meet
month?
They're scheduled every month.
Every
they're
month.
scheduled every month,
And
but
And
when-
they
they,
meet pretty much every
They
month.
meet every month. I don't think there's
On
been a single
different-
one, no, there's been one canceled this year.
Maybe.
Because they couldn't get a quorum.
Mhm.
And they meet every month.
okay,
Now,
well,
it's not fair
I
to me
stand
because all the
corrected,
ones,
so.
all the ones I've been sitting at is not fair, right, have been taken up by some large projects.
But they're
So-
generally the
so
same,
If you
Right.
took that
Project.
number of ZBA appeals and segregated the ones for the fencing kinds of issues from the development
project.
issues,
Minority.
you're talking about a very small number, so
It's
it
very
doesn't
small.
really matter that the town is picking up some
It's
of it.
So-
Right,
insignificant.
So then we
that is,
just
you're
have to
absolutely
make
right, that is
sure-
minority, it's the big
Okay, fine.
projects that are
So you
taken
want
up.
to, we just want to make sure
Just
that
leave it
we're.
the way it is. I don't think
okay.
it's fair for somebody who wants to come in and challenge a law or a fence
Okay.
to get hit with $1,000 bill. Because then, kind of discourages them from challenging the law.
Well, but
Or
why,
asking for an exception.
yeah, but why should other taxpayers have to pay for the exception? If
Because
if it's a good, if it's a good law, then change the law for everybody.
Listen to me, everybody's entitled to relief from a law, that's why you have the ZBA.
Yeah.
So why penalize people when they legitimately need relief? Like you need relief on a constant basis, right? Relief. So I think because of the small number of cases,
Okay, but we should
And they
make sure
usually
that
are,
we're.
I mean, the cases usually are a the majority of them, and Kitty, it's lot line revisions because they
Yeah.
want to put a woodshed
I
on
mean,
the
I
back
don't
of
know
their
if there's a
property.
way to create some kind of threshold, you know,
just
like
charge
if,
a larger application fee, that's it.
But you don't know, like, in other words, nobody ever knew how long the Hampton Inn was good. I mean, what we have to do is check that on these bigger projects.
Right.
That if they're
Should be
going,
passed through.
I mean, the Hampton Inn took 2 years in front of the ZBA.
So that's why Kelly's.
But the Hampton
that
Inn
important.
should have an
I think she's
escrow.
gonna-
Well, that's
They
what we
do.
have to do, but they probably did.
They,
but we have to
they
just
still
make sure
do,
legally-
they still actually
and
have.
does
Yeah.
ZBA
So is
have
this
the
something you
right
want
to
Kelly to look
access that
into?
escrow account?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Okay,
Absolutely.
So is everybody okay with the ZBA budget?
Now,
Yeah.
I have what may be a silly question.
To ask yourself, because
So I looked at this budget and I didn't say anything when we were doing this, but I noticed that, and I'm not picking on Kelly, but Kelly is budgeted 50% in the building department, a portion in planning and a portion in zoning. Okay? I have no problem with that. It comes to a total of a full-time position. So why am I seeing under zoning 8010.1, I see no expenditures actual through 9/17/12. Is she not working for the ZBA already when Linda says what a cracker job she's doing? There's no expenses for personnel at all
I don't
in
know,
zoning.
and I can ask.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
because it's somewhere else.
I mean, that's the numbers me and you put in. Those were numbers that were laid in for us, so I
Right,
can ask.
so either she's being charged
all to-
50% to building and 50% to planning. In either way, it's messing up my numbers.
Okay.
Fix it.
It's messing up your brain, it's messing up your mind.
You can't do
Can't play with your head,
it.
huh?
No, you can't.
Okay. Well, actually, there's money, okay.
There,
So-
yeah, there is money
yeah,
there,
okay, so we
and
should be-
so
yeah.
it should be,
Just out of curiosity, with the planning board, just out of curiosity. Okay. Okay, so is everybody okay with the ZBA?
Yep.
To move on, so we can get the ENCB. What you will see is, why you see the $1,000 in yellow, is because, I can't remember if it was in the A fund and it was moved to the B fund because the village has a ENCB, and it just didn't, in all the scribble, you'll see there's a couple places where some things didn't get carried over, because it was on one page that said move to the A fund, move to the B fund, or move to the DB fund, or move to this fund, and in all the scribble, it didn't get carried over, so that's $1,000 that has to be added in. Okay?
wow.
ENCB was never in the A fund.
I think there was, Kitty,
That would be pretty
I don't
shocking.
ever remember that in the
let me look and see, because I think that's, no, I don't have,
No,
well, you'd have to go back to the A1 and look.
yeah, no,
On
last
the-
year it was the same
Does it
place,
show?
B 8090.
8090 was the last year.
Yeah.
Do you see it in the A also?
No,
It's in the B.
it's in the
Is there
B.
anything in the A?
Okay, all right, so wait a
It is
minute.
listed in the A, but it's all
There's-
zeros.
Okay, for last year, Jeff?
Yeah, for
Okay.
2012.
Well, for whatever-
2011 also.
Okay, well, somehow it got inadvertently left out, so the $1,000. No, it's a B because the village has one. And one day we'll have it all A, because it won't be. But anyway, so
Okay.
that was put in, okay?
So that,
And that's for the secretary and for miscellaneous, you'll see.
and that needs to be 8,000,
No, 1,000,
1,000, I apologize.
yeah, 1,000, okay?
It was
Okay,
Right.
there is no, okay, moving down to community beautification, which was in the A fund and got moved over to the B fund. Or, I think that's
It
what
must have been
happened.
the other way, because it's 0 last year.
Right, because it was in the A fund, and it should have been the B fund, because the village has their community beautification and stuff. So what happened was, it was in the worksheets that I had, and it said move to the B fund, and it never got moved to the B fund when we were transposing stuff or whatever, so that's what that is. Now, actually, looking at, if you guys look at your worksheet, then the beautification committee actually never really put in a budget, but working with their old budget, if you look at the watering, you know, the $2,500 taken out because we're not gonna be doing the flowers. And, so they had money for the Coral Acres Nursery, maintaining the welcome sign. The Welcome Farm flower baskets, we're not paying for that, but I kept that number because, we're doing holiday decorations instead. They had money in there for, the community center in 2010. They didn't have it in 2011. Then there's like $400 that they had for hooks or something, and then they have, is it $4,500, do you think, for the benches? I don't know. At the end
No,
of the day,
$1,300 for garden and tree
yeah, what's
maintenance.
this right here?
So you
You can't
put in
visit.
another $700.
Yeah, I mean, it came down to 4,300 right now for the moment, looking at some of the stuff, but you and I had budgeted 5,000, and we just moved the 5,000 over. When I looked at this and tried to work what they had, it was 4,300. But look at this one, maybe we can bring it down to 4,000.
Well,
You guys.
last year, out of the B fund, they spent 4,300.
4,300.
Oh
So,
my God, so I
Well,
came up
in-
with, so I came up exactly
in
with
A.
this.
They came, they spent 4,300.
sorry.
And I
But
came up
that
with
includes, but that includes the flowers
And
and everything.
they
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
spent money?
That's right, it includes the
they-
flowers and the
yeah,
watering.
because
and
this was
So, but you're
the
taking
year
the
of the
flowers
flower
out.
pots.
I did take the
Okay.
flowers
Right?
out.
No, you got 1,300.
So that looks like
No,
a
no,
good
no, if you see up
number.
here, I took that.
Although they're
If you
doing
see, it's
different
holiday
things.
decorations.
Mhm.
Looks
So
like
we're
they
doing
can
the
live
holiday
with that
decorations instead
amount.
of the flowers. And it might be even less to
Okay.
do the holiday decorations, because honestly, I don't think we have to buy
Okay,
any.
Kitty's right, okay.
What?
So
So-
in 2011, they spent 4,300
Yep.
in the A fund. So 4,300 is a good number.
Right, now, remember, last year, though, we did the watering, we bought the
Right.
flowers, and we're not doing that.
So
But we're gonna
I
be-
don't think we have to go up to
But-
5,000.
Okay,
Right,
so then
we're
we'll go back to 46,
swapping-
sure.
Yeah.
Right, but
Okay,
we're
so-
swapping
Actually-
out the,
Holiday decorations, but that's not that hard, because I think we own them all
We've already
already,
got them.
and all we have to do is put them up,
Okay.
so it's.
So we're
Actually,
going with-
Well, beautification actually came to 5010 last year. Sorry, 5,010.
Yeah, but don't forget, we were doing the watering and buying
but
the
that had
flowers.
personal
So we're gonna drop it
services.
to 4,000?
Just the,
Well, keep in mind if you're doing it now, when you say you want to do the snowflakes and everything on Main Street,
That's what we're gonna do.
okay, that won't cover it. 4,300 won't even come close to helping to cover electricity. That's the big kick in the seat for.
But,
Chris has something to say.
I don't think they're gonna hook them, the electricity part up,
To
they're
the-
just gonna hang them up,
Okay,
Yeah,
and then they're gonna run a couple strings of lights on a few trees
okay.
in the town.
I think they're gonna ask the
They were just hanging
merchants.
them, not
Yeah.
The big showstopper is electricity, Susan.
Uh-huh.
Right.
They're incredible energy, not efficient. And they weren't being turned off, and there was.
Okay,
well, that's horrible.
okay, so we're not
Oh, they
doing
were
that.
terrible.
So, do you wanna make it 4,000?
Four.
4,000, okay.
We actually really should be voting on these.
Well, nobody's objected, so,
Do it at the
you
end.
know, we'll do it at the end.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
So I'm going to make my garden and tree maintenance $1,000. That's what
Okay, so let me see what you are doing, so I can make
that's
sure.
what I did, because that's 26,300, that's 4,000. That's what I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
your garden maintenance right here is up here.
No, that was in the prior year.
Here.
I had
Oh, you kept that
$1,000.
$1,000, right, where it says the landscape improvements to PD, you're making that,
No, underneath, it's garden and tree
Oh, okay, you're
maintenance
making
at
that- oh.
1,300.
Oh, you're making that
I'm making
1,000.
that 1,000.
okay, you did see that I took out the landscape improvements to the PD.
We took that out,
We took it out.
yes,
Yes, Gina and
absolutely.
I took that out.
All right, so
No, actually,
now,
I'm wondering, shouldn't, well, it's not, it's not really our call.
Right. So what we can tell them they have
But-
4,000 and,
Is this what they submitted, that
they haven't given us a submission
no,
this year.
this was from last year.
They didn't give us a submission this year.
Well, I have a feeling they're very concerned about the condition of a lot of the trees in the town. I think we should leave line I at 1,300 and maybe take down line B by 300.
Oh, I see, okay, you wanna keep,
I mean, they talk a lot about the condition of dead and damaged trees in town that need some
Okay,
work.
but
so-
they're awfully proud of the welcome sign.
You know what though, Kitty, the whole thing is,
But-
it's a
but that,
single
I
line,
think-
there's no sub-accounts on it.
yeah, so, I mean, why don't we just say
You
4,000,
know what
let
I
them
mean,
figure.
there's no sub-accounts, under,
All right,
it's a single line. It's-
okay,
I
well,
mean,
that's why I was saying, are we
well, It
micromanaging
actually
here?
does have,
All right, so we'll just take it, they
Okay,
can
let's
spend it
move on.
already.
Okay, because I wanna get, we have to get to the snow plowing, that's
That
that.
All
was
right.
so
Okay,
fun.
so state retirement went from 11,352 up to 17,075. I did, really just very quickly, I'll just repeat this again and we'll get into it more. The state retirement expense that the state gave us, gave you guys last year to plan for this year. We just got the bill today, I guess, and the A, B, DA and DB went up 8%, and we're gonna have to find $30,000 in this year's budget to cover the state retirement. And next week, when we talk about the A fund, the police state retirement went up 26%, and we're gonna have to come up with $120,000 somewhere in the budget to cover the police state retirement increase just this year alone,
26%.
26%.
it's that report I gave you.
That's,
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
for,
There's the reason.
okay, so we're going to have to,
That iceberg is looming ever bigger.
That's why I
Okay.
stuck that
Right,
in everyone's
right.
mailbox.
okay,
Right.
and so we're gonna have to, I'm gonna have to somehow, we're gonna have to look really carefully at what kinds of revenues we're getting in this year and where we're at, so we can, understand the fund balance, but, I have it right here, $30,000 from all other funds, which was an 8% increase, and the police went up 27% from what you had in the budget to what the actual charge is, and we're gonna have to find $120,000 that was not budgeted for state.
oh, but it doesn't mean that it increased 20%, 27%
In 1
over
year.
what it cost last year. It means it's 27%
budgeted.
higher than what was budgeted.
Exactly.
Okay,
So
but
by
it's not
last year's-
27% higher
No,
than
next year-
what they charged us last year.
No, well,
It may be,
it's
because-
increased 27% from what you had in the budget. So if in the budget, I actually have it, which is why I have so much paper here. I have the bill,
You'd have to go back to the actual and measure it against.
it's, right here.
Which,
So which one is it? Is
It's
it
right here. Okay,
9010
here,
or?
this is what you can look at. So for example, here, they put in the 2012 budget 381,653 for A, B, D, A, D, B. The actual bill is 411,515. So we have to come up with 29,862, which we're under budget, and that's an 8% increase from what the state told us, told you guys to budget last year. The
Wow,
police retirement, you guys budgeted last year 447,605 for police and police retirement, and the actual bill is $505,794, which is under budget by $120,000. And if we
But-
pay it before,
How much is that, 500, how much is it?
it's gonna be $567,588.
It's kinda like your 401k.
right, so why wasn't at least 510? Okay,
You have to
never
find
mind.
150,000.
Never mind,
We're gonna have to find $150,000 in the budget to,
not my job.
to pay for this, okay?
Okay.
And then what
We are,
the,
we turn
and then with
around,
the state retirement, and then the state retirement going forward next year, paying it forward, that's going up 12%, just as an estimate.
Would
Just so
12%,
you know,
yeah.
just so you know, Jeff put this iceberg ahead. great reading, and we don't budget for medical benefits. It's pay as you go, which is a
Pay
really
as you
stupid
go.
model.
But
Because what it does is, you're paying out of your current budget for current benefits and retiree benefits
right,
without any funding for future payments. So the future generations are saddled with some lousy deal that was made in the past.
Yep.
So we're gonna have to take a serious look at that, especially in connection with consolidation and how we're gonna deal with that going forward. And I suggest, and we talked about this, maybe making New Paltz a model of how we turn things around and move forward.
oh, well, we are a little behind because there is a Gatsby model that has expired, and we are supposed to be compliant, and the town of New Paltz is not compliant. And they are supposed to be planning for and putting away for the long term.
But the Gatsby model has several assumptions where you can play with the numbers. First of all, a 30-year amortization on the thing is ridiculous, that's number one. And two, the rate of returns that you figure for the discount, a lot of people are assuming an 8%
No,
discount.
no, I'm
rate.
not talking about the comptroller's bill.
I'm talking about the standard for government, just like there is a standard for public companies. It's an accounting standard that you just talked about, right?
Yes,
And you're supposed to come up with a model and budget out of your current money for future expense.
yes, and it is meticulous. It is based on the employee's age,
But
years of
this
service.
says it could be underfunded by 3 times, even using that model.
Well, if you don't do it well,
But you know what?
but you could do it well.
Worried about the general county.
But-
reserve.
But
you know-
doing it
okay.
well if you think these numbers take your breath away, doing it right is gonna knock us down.
Well, we won't be able to
Well,
afford any
but-
services.
But-
It's,
We're not gonna be, look, it's our subcommittee has determined that with some village employees, you only have to work 5 years if you were hired prior to a date a few years ago to get lifetime health
Mhm.
benefits. In the town here, it's 8
Mhm.
for the most part. But it's a serious problem. We should try to deal with it in the next 4 months, have a special subcommittee set up to look at it and figure out a way out of it. There are actually towns trying to do it now.
There's a
Look
couple
at
of
this.
them, yeah.
They're trying to develop a new model, and we have to do it.
Because even under the model, Gene, they use the example in that, when you look through it, is the MTA is billions.
Yeah,
In
did you
debt.
leave it in my mailbox?
Yeah, I did.
Thank you.
I thought you would like that.
Thank
But they are, and they've been using the general accounting office model, and they are I forgot how many billions, a ridiculous
Right.
amount.
Well, what's
Yes,
gonna end up happening
underfunded.
is it's gonna end up getting, it's gonna
Because
be
the
default, and
calculations they've
state's
been
gonna have
using,
to-
Well, what you have
the
here
calculations
locally,
weren't.
if you use their numbers and their statistics, our medical expense for the town will double in 8 years and triple in 12.
Mhm.
So what's our total expenditure for medical now, a year?
it's about 100,000 a month.
It's 150,000.
150,000 a month, we can throw in dental
Right.
and,
So 150,000 a month is 1.8, so double that to 3.6, and then add another third of that again.
Well, I will tell you,
So who's paying for that?
Yeah.
That's
Well-
bigger than the police budget right now in its entirety.
well, what I will say is, and we'll talk about it next week when we do the A fund, if we get done tonight with these other funds, is that basically our budget, 65% I think of our budget is state retirement, medical, and the police department.
yes.
Yeah.
That's our budget, 65%, state retirement, medical, police.
And state.
And the other 35 is everything else in this
That
town.
35 goes
including
down
highway
to
and-
2% in 8 years probably. So everything that we will be raising by taxes will be devoted just to future
Right.
obligations, and there'll be no money
We
left.
won't be able
To
to
run-
proceed.
To run
We would never be able
programs.
to hold 2%.
We'll have a,
Right,
sh- we'll have a,
right.
Chris Marks will have a shed, and that'll be town hall.
Which is why we really have to do the consolidation and get the $1 million from the state government.
The
That's
state's
kind
not
of-
gonna have the money either. No
Well, I
one's
know,
gonna
so
have the
anyway,
money
so let's,
either.
We can't,
so-
we can't ignore this.
Okay,
No one's
anyway.
gonna have any more.
Okay, so you
money.
saw state retirement to the B fund went from 11,352 to 17,075. We can't change that number at least right now, so that's what it is. Workers' comp went from 9,010 to 10,530. Can't change that. And that, in essence, is pretty much the B fund. Pretty much the B fund. Now, for the moment, okay, so now just for the moment, and we don't have to make any decisions just yet because we have to see what we're gonna do with highway, with the DB and the DA, and what opportunity there might be with the DB, with the B fund balance. But right now, there's an extraordinary amount of money in the B fund balance. An awful lot of money. And we're gonna be getting the $200,000 from Time Water that's going to go into the B fund, which is gonna bring it up even more. And
Well,
so.
that's not a bad thing.
No,
No.
that is a bit, first of all, hold on, because the money in the B fund balance is the escrows. That's why it has to be
Yeah, but
removed.
Jean,
You're not
Jean,
sure that
it's not, although, I know that, and we're going to remove it, and we're gonna try to get a handle on it before next week's meeting. But I'm pretty
Okay.
sure that out of the $600,000 that's being reflected, $600,000 is not
I
escrows.
think we should make
Yeah, I
a
mean,
distinction
if I
so
had
we
to-
know the
if-
actual values.
Gene, if I had to guess, right now, there's 4 sizable projects in front of the planning board, and if each one of those 4 had 15,000, that would be pretty substantial. So I mean, I think 60,000 would
Okay.
be.
Right, and we have right now,
Would be a top number, I would say off the top of my head, but I will guarantee you Kelly and Mike will have a handle on it by next
Yeah.
week's meeting.
Okay,
and,
So
but right
what
now,
are you estimating?
but right now we
the
have-
unexpended?
well, I'm gonna just tell you, right now, we have pretty much $640,000 in the B fund, B
Do we
fund.
have,
But what we have to do, just let me tell you just really quickly, so the one thing I have to do that we have to take out of here is, between now and the end of the year, because we've gotten pretty much all our revenues, between now and the end of the year, figure out the calculations of our personal services, state retirement and all that, but even if it brings it down to $600,000, and then we're getting $200,000 in from Time Warner that I haven't even put into the budget, because we had the meeting after we did the budget. So the revenues, we're gonna increase the revenues for the B fund by $200,000, well, by 170, because we're gonna take out the 30 for equipment. So,
What do you think the B fund?
well, Patty and I have to go look, I mean, it is in the annual report, so it is in the annual report, but we,
Because our total budget is only 400.
well, you know what, I'll tell you what I think, but I can't tell you that it's
I
fact by any
wouldn't
means.
say anything unless you do.
Okay.
You know,
I
I wouldn't
don't
even,
think
let's
it's
say.
smart to say anything.
Okay,
You
all
know,
I'm gonna say.
take
Right.
the attorney's advice.
Zip it.
Okay, so anyway, the long and the short is, after we get a little bit better of a handle on it, we know, if you look at your B fund right now and you see the amount to be raised by taxes, as 94,290, I think we could take that down substantially. I think we could take that down substantially, and then depending on what we do with highway, with the DB fund and the DA fund. One of the questions that I did ask today, and Patty's gonna double check it, and Jean might already know the answer, is that because the B fund and the DB fund are the same taxpayers, could we, if we find ourselves having to go, you know, depending on what we do with the highway, which we'll get to, if our DB fund, which right now, because we have snow plowing in it, but we'll have that conversation, we have to go over the cap, if we can take some of the D fund, fund balance, move it into the DB fund to then offset taxes there, we could bring it below the cap, and so we might be okay. Patty said she thought that you can take, because the B fund and the DB fund is the same tax base, right?
well, let's,
Yeah.
Okay,
let's,
we'll figure that
let's
out.
find
Okay,
out what
we'll
the
find that
answer
out.
is.
So anyway,
But
but
what is
anyway,
that
right.
sheet that you were looking at that has
Well, this is
the-
what Patty did was, and it's not complete yet, we started working on
Okay.
it late this afternoon, was, if you look at the annual report, there's like a total assigned fund balance, less prepaid expenses, because you paid some straight retirement at the, you pay it forward, you pay it in December for the February payment. So you have, this according to Linda Hannigan, okay, that you, take the assigned fund balance, subtract the prepaid, what your subtotal is your fund balance. However, you know, we don't know, like right now, what expenses we have and what if we're tapping into the fund balance this year or not. So one of the things I asked Patty to do was to start estimating what kind of payroll we still have left, what the retirement is, what are some of the expenses, so we can subtract those out and see what money we think we have left in the fund balance, and then we can make decisions there. So I'm just saying right now that I think when we come back and we visit this, I suspect that we could take the amount to be raised by taxes in the B fund down substantially, if not completely. Okay? So so do you want to, Jeff, since you suggested it, make a motion to amend the B fund as dictated today, or however you want to phrase it.
Dictated.
Can't think of the word, as amended?
Well,
Or how do you want to do this?
Well, are you, I guess, because Kevin and I were sitting here looking at the numbers at the same time.
We don't have to do anything. I mean, right
Yeah.
now, this is just numbers that we know.
You're just
Just
asking
tonight,
us
what
to
we did tonight.
approve the
Do you
I'd
wanna
like to make
just,
the-
do you wanna just keep
Let me
going?
put it to you this way, for the moment, okay?
Because
The
you-
preliminary budget will reflect what you guys want. Okay, so right now, from my perspective, the preliminary budget, unless you make any changes, is going to reflect these numbers.
Okay.
We still have time
We need to vote
until,
on every change though, so even if we go back and change it again.
So we wait till the end?
so we can do that. Well,
Well, the end of tonight, well, you want to close the B fund right now? Close it
that's what I'm
just
saying,
for
let's be
tonight.
fun for the time, because we,
Good.
because I think.
I'd like to
the-
make-
Close it,
I'd like to make a
we're done.
motion that the changes to the B fund
As discussed.
as discussed will be put into the preliminary, the tentative budget,
Second.
Preliminary budget,
Preliminary.
budget.
okay.
From the tentative budget to the preliminary
Okay,
budget.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Okay, so now,
So that we got.
let's go to the DA fund. What you have is another sheet. Okay, let's go DA. Now, there's DA, there's DB,
What do you mean I have another sheet?
and I did,
Can't
I don't
pronounce
respond,
that.
did I not bring that copy? No, I made a little sheet that, a little cheat sheet that said,
I don't have
always, like, traffic was always
Oh, wait.
Are you
bringing
gonna
me.
go to
Maybe I
DB or
can.
DA? Where do you want to
We'll
go?
do DA first, but I had a little cheat sheet
it.
that,
No, there's a cheat sheet for DB.
there is a cheat sheet for DB, but I had another little cheat sheet that just said, but it's already, it's on the top, that just basically said,
I don't have a
snow
DA
plowing
sheet.
was here, but we moved it here, traffic was always there, general repairs was always here, this one got moved here, that one got moved here, because we moved everything back and forth so many times that two things got left out of the budget completely, but thank goodness it wasn't a lot of money and we'll be fine, but, we just kept
Okay.
moving things back and forth, so. Okay, so let's just start with the DA.
Okay.
Okay, so, Chris, I don't know, what is it, if you wanna come up here or you wanna,
You comfortable there, or? do you
okay.
wanna-
Okay, so we're gonna start with the DA, which is the superintendent's, highway superintendent's line. Chris had requested, do you guys feel comfortable talking about this? I mean, I feel comfortable for at least just with Chris, but, there are the other, in the A fund, there are some changes in some of personnel that we probably might not wanna discuss publicly until we make some decisions what we
Well, no,
wanna
we're
do,
not
but,
putting any names in here, I mean. this
well,
is-
it's just that if you look at the,
Not-
no?
I'm not comfortable until we make a final decision.
Okay, so you wanna skip over,
We
what-
can,
Wait.
right, no, we can
I
discuss.
feel like we're talking in code here.
No, we can discuss it, I mean, we're not using any.
We have a
Yeah.
worksheet here,
yes,
Okay.
we do.
and that's what we're here to discuss.
Yeah, So we
Okay.
can discuss this.
Okay, fine, I
So
feel,
there's
okay.
no code talking here.
Well, no,
Okay.
no, it's just that usually when you do personnel, you do personnel in executive session first, and then you come out, you
But
take
this
your
is, we're
action.
not talking about an individual.
We
here.
are in this, well, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't know who the highway superintendent is.
Well,
We're talking about,
let's just talk.
Elected official.
let's just talk about it.
Okay, I have no problem,
Yeah,
I mean.
no, it's elected, yeah.
Okay, so the highway superintendent, put in a raise from $43,000 to $65,000. And, I certainly had no problem reflecting it, because A, you know how I feel about the job that he's doing. B, the fact that we just merged, buildings and grounds and highway together, and he's taken on extra responsibility. The fact that we couldn't have made a lot of the mergers that we did if it were not for him. And he's also, many of his guys are already making a lot more money. Most of the guys he supervises makes more than him. And so he increased his salary from 43 to 65, and that's what I'm reflecting proudly, happily, and I would be more than happy to give it to him.
I think just the way his comment on that, I don't think it's relative at all that there's other guys making more than him. I think what's relative is that Chris has been, he's taken on the buildings and grounds, and we are not going to backfill that position. So Chris is now taking on more people. And also, Chris is also taking on, he actually already did it, even with us out giving him remuneration. He's taking on a lot of the ball fields and maintaining our fields. He also has taken on a lot of the maintenance, actually he's taken on the lead of all the maintenance of Moriello Park, although we had great cooperation this year, and Chris will say that, but it fell upon Chris to organize the crews to take care of Moriello Park too. So I think with the additional workload that we put on Chris, we have definitely taken his job from, I I won't know how many hours, but
We've
it
added-
is certainly, we have added almost basically 2 departments to Chris's responsibilities. So, 3 departments to Chris's
Water
responsibilities.
and sewer.
That, I apologize. You know what, we've actually, I left that out. We've actually added 3 departments. We've added water and sewer to Chris also.
Right.
So, the full-time job is definitely there as a full-time job.
So, is it, just so I understand the history, is the prior salary a salary that was set for a part-time position?
Well, it's an elected official, so in theory, the highway superintendent what their position is controlled under New York state law. So Chris's actual position is a elected official, so he can work the hours that he deems necessary.
I could put 2 hours in,
Yeah.
I could put,
It's up to him. He's an elected official, and he has his own budget, and that's why he has his own funds, and
but
he's,
the board did make it a 40-hour work week.
That's right.
right. So what we did is, remember a couple months ago, we did deem Chris's job as a 40-hour work week. But that's not real, we did that more for the
That was for
retirement.
sure, yeah.
We did that for retirement, not to indicate what he should be working. Chris could still decide to work, if he wanted to, 2 hours a day. That would be his
But-
choice, although I saw him this morning at 6:45 on, I think Jansen, off of Jansen on Du Bois, so I'm guessing Chris is not working 2 hours a day.
Let me ask you a question. I guess some people in the community are afraid that, you set a precedent by creating a new salary for this position. We heard from somebody tonight that consolidation is coming. There might be, that there might be something that happens in the future. And I'm just saying that because I know from reviewing town law, there's a specific legislative section, statutory section, that gives the town board the authority to pay additional money when somebody assumes additional responsibility. So back to your point, when someone does assume additional responsibility, the statute does give the town board the authority to increase the pay. Now, that can be permanent, or it can be for a period of time. So it's something for the board to consider.
Well, this is a period of time, because again, next year, just assuming, in next year's budget, we would have the same choice on the superintendent line, on the DA line, this DA 60, 10, 60, 20, on that line, we can change it
So
back.
what,
But we have, what we've done is we have less employees, and he's now doing their job.
I'm just trying to vet
No,
this.
I'm with you, yeah.
So can I just ask one question about the DPW department in the village? That's, Chris's, counterpart there that's an appointed, am I right? Okay. And so as appointed, is that also, subject to an annual budget, or is that civil service, or how does that work?
It's a civil service position.
It
That
is?
Actually, it's appointed
Okay.
at the whim of the board.
So he works at the pleasure of the board, so if a board
Correct.
came in and decided to remove him, they would have to take a candidate off the civil service list, or you could hire a
that's the
There
candidate,
part.
is, there
no one on the list.
there is not an examination for superintendent
So,
That's funny, because my dad took it,
in the
and
village.
in the village, my dad
Included
took the,
too.
yeah, there is an examination, I know there is. Yeah, there's an examination for highway superintendent. So
For D-
there is I apologize
No.
for.
DPW.
DPW.
So they would have to hire up the list, although there is a provision, I believe, that they can hire someone and then they can go and qualify.
I
But
believe
what-
that position pays more than we're paying now.
Isn't
It-
that
it does.
But that is,
It does, right?
isn't that a union position?
I believe that's exempt, isn't that, Chris?
I'm sorry?
Is
Well,
that
no,
exempt?
It's exempt
From-
at the village. I'm saying if what you're talking about is if someone is appointed off the civil service list, doesn't that make it a union position?
I have no idea.
Okay.
When you were there, do you remember ever seeing him, was he part of?
I know a
I
lot
have
of
the
things about the
information.
village that I don't choose to say on camera.
I have the information, but I don't have it.
Okay,
So is that a question that you know the answer to? He's just
Yes.
asking me,
Yeah, I
testing me?
think he is.
no, she's
No,
not
I know
texting you,
the
she's just not answering you.
I think he is.
Oh.
I have
Well,
the
she knows
information.
the
I know the
answer.
answer.
Okay, anyway, so if we can
Then
move
why
on.
are you asking us?
You're not, she's not asking me. You
Well,
guys
she
are
asked
asking.
me. No, she asked me. She asked me if it was a union position. I said, I don't know.
Oh, okay. Anyway, we're
Gene,
here
is that a
to,
union position?
we're here to discuss the village, the town
Well,
budget.
I'm trying to get a hand on this because I'm trying to understand when this is a consolidated position and we're going with the village model,
Mhm.
we would have an appointed DPW
Okay,
Right.
super.
let me jump in on twofold, okay?
That is what the study said.
First, let me do
Right.
twofold, just, one, just dealing with the reality is, right now, we're a town government. Right now, we have a highway superintendent. What happens in the future
Right.
will happen in the future. We're dealing with today, the present. And, if consolidation doesn't happen, are we gonna deny a potential raise to somebody who deserves it because we might consolidate in the future? So I think that conversation is irrelevant because we'll do the budget next year. And if we're consolidated, there'll be a consolidated budget, in terms of what we think we're gonna do for those positions. But I'm gonna get into that in a second in more detail, but I just think the conversation's separate. Simultaneously, it's really important to understand that right now, we're very fortunate that Chris has agreed to work with us on this because as highway superintendent, he does not have to take any of this on. He's only responsible for what's in the law book, and that's taking care of the highway.
But,
We could- wait, let me just
but-
finish.
no, Wait, Susan, I mean, you and Chris spent a lot of time developing this new
I
job
know, so
description
I know, and I
for
want to
Chris.
finish, but this is, I want to just finish a
Okay.
point. That, yeah, because Chris has allowed us to do it, okay? So there are two things that we have. One thing is, going forward, we have to try to turn Chris's position into it would be beneficial, I believe, and we could discuss this later, to turn Chris's position into a appointed position, establish an appointed position, appoint him, and then Chris is here for now on and whatever. If it stays as an elected official, and Chris should choose not to run next year, and the next person who runs ends up getting elected and says, I'm not taking on buildings and grounds, I'm not taking on water sewer, that's not what I ran for, I'm only obligated to be the highway superintendent.
Right.
They can basically
that's
tell
what I
all the work
that's
that we
what I
just
wanted
did.
to know.
Yes, they can tell all the work that we've just done and turn around and say to us,
Well,
Thank you very
I
much.
wish I had known that
Yeah.
when we had the discussion to
We did.
eliminate Bob's position and consolidate everything. I mean, I had assumed that we had created a new position that is responsible for
No,
all of this.
we did.
I thought that's what we did.
No, we did discuss it, okay, and what we said was, if you might not remember, and I don't mean that meanly, okay, I'm just saying that what we said was that we had to move forward on how we had to move forward with Chris's position and how we're gonna handle it, but right now with Bob leaving, we have to deal with the issue at hand, take care of it. We didn't want to replace a person with Bob because we were trying to work on creating this new thing. The technicality of how we end up creating his position, we've been working with Bill Wallens for a while to define. If you do a DPW, then it's a DPW commissioner. It ends up being tested. It ends up being a list. We could lose Chris. Okay, so Bill was always very careful to say don't call it a DPW because that binds you to certain things. And so, we've been trying to work on where we go with how we do with Chris, but we had to deal with Bob's immediately, and we just ended up redoing the department, doing the contract. I think there's two conversations because, let me go to the consolidation, then I'll go back to Chris, okay? Tomorrow, Chris, myself, Blue, Sally Rhodes, Nancy Bracco are meeting for the Finance Committee to talk with Blue and Chris about all of the lines that they both represent, in the village and in the town, and how they believe a merged government could operate between
But
Chris
Susan,
and Blue.
I'm sorry,
Okay,
but
go ahead.
5 minutes ago, I was trying to talk about how a merged position would look.
And I was gonna tell you, we're
said
gonna work
it's
on
not
that
the
tomorrow.
discussion now.
No,
I would
just,
really just like, I
Mhm.
would like to keep us on this issue, and I would like to try to, I thought what we had done was to create a DPW.
no, no, we-
And I know that, that's what I will have to go back and look at the actual letter and proposal that we got from you and Chris. But, so now what I'm learning is that we still have the old job title, but
he's
with,
still an elected highway superintendent.
but with a lot of other responsibilities. But, as you say, then if Chris decided, to run for governor, then
I'd work on his campaign.
it's got to be easier than the job you have now. Then we could get somebody who just says, look, the title says Superintendent of Highways, that's all I'm doing. And at $65,000.
No, I didn't, what I was going to say, if Chris, I'll just go back with him, what I said about the discussion with consolidation was when you were asking the question, I only said, we're discussing that tomorrow, so we couldn't answer you because we're working on it. So that's all I wanted to say to you on that was, it's, the consolidation part, we haven't decided what we're doing. We're having a conversation tomorrow. So I was just saying, let's not get into that because we'll know more later. Okay, what I'm saying about with Chris is that right now, we do have to, when we started to make this change, we were clear when we talked about it that there's more work to be done with Chris, but let's not worry about it because Chris isn't worried about it. He's willing to take on this responsibility. We might have to, if we want to change it, if we want to go from an elected official to a appointed official, we have to go through, might have to have a public hearing, a referendum, a vote.
Yeah.
So we didn't have time to do that because Bob was leaving. We might not have to do that if we end up deciding to consolidate because then we'll have
Right.
so that might be irrelevant.
Right.
And all I'm pointing out about is the raise right now, which Kevin brought up, what Don Curry talked about doing anything right now. And what I'm saying is right now, Chris deserves it. He's taken on this work. If some reason next year the consolidation fails, for some reason we can't turn Chris's position into an appointed position, and we should get a highway superintendent who basically says, I'm not taking that on, then we cut the budget
Why
back
don't we
down
just-
in next year's budget.
Well,
You make it,
Why don't we just split it then? Why don't we just keep it the way it is for the highway superintendent and provide an additional X dollars for the additional work?
I think a stipend
what I
for
mean.
the other
Yeah.
job description makes a lot more
It achieves
sense.
the same
if
thing,
you want to do it that way, I really don't care.
doesn't it?
Same dollar.
And I don't think Chris cares.
Same dollar.
A stipend, I think.
The only
is a
difference is it comes out of a different budget line. It's not a big deal. It just goes back into the B fund, into the
The
A
other
fund,
thing is-
right? If we give him a stipend for buildings and grounds, and then we have to figure out water and sewer, how we're gonna build that.
You
Right
should
now,
just
right now,
apportion
he's just coming out of, it's coming out of the DA fund.
Why,
It would make
Right.
more sense to do it that way.
Because actually, you know what, Kevin's got a very valid point here, because then if you do a stipend out, we can take it where he's gonna be spending,
Right.
say, percentages of his time, so.
We can do
For
that.
example, we look at Bob, how much time did he spend in sewer 6? And it was probably about 110% of his time. So, we actually can, Kevin's point actually is probably much more relative, because now we can actually proportion the money to the parts of the budget where it belongs. I have no problem with the dollar difference. It's, maybe we should be looking, what do you think, Gene? Should we be taking the money out of where he's gonna be spending his time?
If you're going to do a stipend, yes.
especially because so much of this is going to be water and sewer.
No, he's actually gonna spend
Well,
very little time on water
I
and
would
sewer
say
because,
about, well, wait a minute.
because we have the contract. We have the contract with
Right,
environmental
environmental
Is
consultants.
that in
consultants.
here?
It's,
Where
yeah,
is
it's in the
that?
water
Water
and
and
sewer above.
sewer.
It's in the water
Okay.
and sewer.
But
He's not gonna be spending the kind of time in sewer six
Well,
up
I don't know,
on.
I mean, but I will guarantee you though, a water line breaks, where Chris is going to be out there standing, he won't be
You just
operating the
have
backhoe, but he'll be standing next to the backhoe at, doing his time.
Jeff's right.
But
You have
actually-
to do a reasonable allocation.
Yeah, I mean,
okay, but still, you'd have to do at least 50% in buildings and grounds, because he's managing the entire department,
yes.
okay?
Mhm.
Then, I think you said he's taken over, maintenance at Moriello, well, that falls under buildings and grounds, that wouldn't be separate from buildings and grounds.
The ball field mowers, I don't know.
Ball field mowing, okay,
Ball
so,
field, so recreation, you might
So you
be.
just take the stipend and allocate it to the additional responsibility.
We just have to, at a certain point, we have to just allocate it, but we can do it and we can talk about it another time because it's gonna go affect all the other budget lines.
It
And affects
will.
state retirement and it reflects, every time you
Well, I
make
know
it.
the stipend would change state
I
retirement.
don't think it would.
yes.
Yeah, because it's still
Because
salary.
it'll still be salary
Yeah.
coming out of
No,
the
but it would
funds.
still, it wouldn't affect the top line, it's
It-
still gonna be the same.
No.
amount.
I'm
No,
just
in
telling you,
each fund,
Each
Every,
Right.
every
It will.
change we
Right.
make goes
Each
back
fund.
and then you have to go back and do all those state
Right.
retirement
Yeah,
numbers.
it
You gotta
changes
go
all the
back.
funds.
The workers' comp, and you gotta change the medical, and you gotta change so all I'm just saying is,
Yep. Gonna
it,
change all the
it
funds.
just changes everything and it's just more work. That's okay. It's just we have to go back and make those changes. And so we can work with Chris if that's the way you want to do it. We can work with Chris and figure out, you know, I mean, he allocated on here, I can make copies of this for anybody who wants. But this is Chris taking all of highway, taking the people, breaking them out between the lines. And so there are percentages, and he can
Carol
figure
sent
out,
that to us.
and he can figure out what his percentages are, and we can lay them in.
Split it up in 4 quarters. I mean, 'cause, I mean, my day, it goes from highway to buildings and grounds to rec to water and sewer. I mean,
Yep.
it's more administrative than actually going out and doing it.
So why don't we, if you guys want to do it as a stipend, we'll just work on what we think with the additional money, how it should be broken up, and just come back with it, you know, to adjust the budgets accordingly. If that's what you guys want to do.
I am
Except for the fact that
going
it's
to make
work.
a motion that we allocate a stipend in the amount of,
22.
no, I'm not going to recommend 22.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
going to
sorry.
recommend a 20% increase, which would be $8,600. I'm sorry, Chris, I think you're a fabulous person, but I think that a 40% increase is more than I'm willing to add to any single position. So my motion is that we add a 20% stipend, which would be $8,600 to be evenly distributed across the new responsibilities that our superintendent of highways has accepted. So that'd be $8,600 divided among, I guess it's 4 different lines.
Does somebody want to second
I'll
that?
second for discussion. So that puts it at, Kitty, that puts it at 51.6.
Yeah,
How did you come up with
20%.
20% increase.
Well, I think, given the increase in workload, that that seems like a fair amount to me.
what are we saving on the consolidated side?
We're saving,
What's the total
we're saving
savings?
Bob's salary, we're saving, well, although, I mean,
Just Bob's salary.
well, we're saving Bob's salary, but we're spending money for the consultant. Chris isn't replacing somebody. Depends on what we end up doing with recreation, you know, we haven't made some decisions on some of the other lines. But at the end of the day,
This is not water.
I mean,
sewer.
no, because that's
No, I
building.
know, that's the one Carol sent us.
You know, you got highway, and then you got, and then I have a building and grounds one, that's right here. Right here's building and grounds one.
Nice one.
But end of the day, I mean,
So,
you can talk about it, you can figure it out. Jeff seconded for purpose of discussion. I'm supporting the 65, that's what Chris asked for. I think he deserves it. It's still way underpaid according to what Blue gets paid, and what, you know, and
For me, the relevant and relative discussion is where are we starting from? And nobody disputes that we are very lucky to have Chris Marks, but we've also lost employees in the town. And I think that this is an appropriate recognition of the very good work that Chris Marks is doing for us.
For me, I think, you know, I think you have to start with a baseline, which is the $43,000 salary as an elected official. And then I think what you have to do is value the additional work in a reasonable way. And I don't know, Kitty, if just taking a percentage of the current number is the appropriate way to do it. I think we should look into, you know, not only the value that he brings and the time he's putting in, but what the real savings is that we've already achieved. And I think that should be a bigger factor in determining what metric we should use to come up with a final number.
you know, I just wanted to say very quickly that, you know, because I really do believe, I do believe the consolidation is gonna happen. I do. I honestly, it's hard to believe that I'm saying it in New Paltz, but I really do believe it. You know, going through the finance committee where we've just worked the other night, we've already identified $1.5 million in savings in the finance committee, and those are legitimate savings, and we think we'll save $2 million when we're done. you lay that $1 million from the, the $1 million from the state, that's $3 million. That we can reduce property taxes in New Paltz by $3 million for the cost of, delivering a better government. And I think in these times, as we talk about the things that you're looking at, like the iceberg ahead, you have no choice but to make changes right now. We can't afford two governments. End of story. I really believe it. I think the work's being done, and I know it will go up for a vote because there's at least 4 people on the village board who want to see it go for a vote. So it will happen, and hopefully we convince the public that it's right. So we will tomorrow probably, be working on what this merged government would look like from highway and, buildings and grounds, DPW, and we'll be coming up with, and we're not going to take the cost of the $65,000 here and lose $75,000 he makes and say, okay, this person's now going to make $150. The person might make $70,000. It's not going to be it's not going to be additive. We have Chris right now. We're going to hopefully be making changes later, and I think Chris should be compensated for the work he's doing. And I don't want to see Chris all of a sudden not doing everything he's doing because he feels disillusioned.
How many people is he responsible for?
Chris?
That's what I'm just adding up now, because he's got, not including secretary, so you've got 10 including secretary in highway. It looks like you have.
Actually, then he retired.
Oh,
I'm going to replace him.
Is he being replaced?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Oh, he's not,
I
okay.
took someone from, Village.
Because we have David Weeks to fill in doing
Oh,
snow.
okay, so you're gonna have 8 in highway. It looks like right now, and hopefully, this is why it might take me longer to figure this out. It looks like you have 5 in water sewer, buildings and grounds.
No, I mean, that's building grounds,
6.
water, and sewer collector.
Right, buildings and grounds, water, sewer.
6.
You have 6, okay. There's someone missing from this then.
Yeah, 19?
Well, we're at now 8 and 5.
8 and 6,
8 and 6, I apologize.
14.
So you're 14. And then he'll have in the summer, he'll have probably 2 seasonal.
With, whatever comes up the pool.
2 seasonal probably, between the
Yeah,
ball
plus-
fields
Plus my seasonal.
and your seasonal.
So that'd actually be probably 3.
Well, I've made my motion. I'm not going to fall on my sword about it. That's why we're here to vote. We have,
And Kitty, just so you
No.
know, I'm not for or against it, I just, I kind of want to look at the,
it's not something that I arrived at easily, but when I started looking at these numbers, it felt like a fairly, it just seems like an extreme jump.
But it's not, I think when you look at it, when you evaluate it, you gotta evaluate it from, it's not a jump from A to Z. A is already in place. All we're doing with the stipend is, we're not raising the salary for the superintendent of highways.
Well,
We're
I feel
providing-
better about
Actually-
that, but
Actually,
providing-
I can see that it appears that, yes, that's exactly what it looks like.
Mhm.
So, I like your idea of a stipend. I do. I don't agree with you about the 8,600. And I just want to say why I don't agree with you about the
Okay.
8,600, because in taking on buildings and grounds alone, the amount of this particular increase is probably less than half of the salary that the other department head was making. So that's half a salary we're saving that, Chris has assumed the workload, the workforce, and including the water and sewer. So I'm really comfortable with going with a stipend. But I would prefer to go with something higher.
did you have a number in mind?
I'm comfortable with 22,000.
Well, I don't want to belabor this. I would like to just call the vote and move on.
Okay. Kitty?
Well, I have a motion.
She made a motion.
Okay, so, okay,
So,
Up to-
I'm going to vote aye on my motion.
okay. Jean,
Nay.
Kevin,
No.
Jeff?
Kitty, I wish I had more time on this, because we can go back to it, too.
Well,
Yeah, no, we can go back to this. I'm gonna vote no on it, because I just don't, I don't have, you know what, I think that the number, there is a number here, Kitty, and I just don't know.
Okay.
I can't do it right now.
Okay, well, you can bring it back.
So I think I think Kitty, we will be revisiting this.
Okay.
But I want to put
Okay.
the number based on, because he's
Okay.
taking on a lot of people.
Okay.
And I'm an aye, and so for the moment it's passed, and we'll see if somebody brings it back
These
up.
are yours. I don't
Okay.
want to lose those. I have
Okay,
to-
then you're a no.
Okay. I'm a yes.
No,
I'm a no for
Yeah.
the motion. Yes, I'm a no.
Okay.
Thank you for correcting me, Kitty.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
That hurt.
Could we-
Okay. Can we move on? Yes. Okay, the secretary, we can't actually increase her salary because is she in the union?
She's in the union.
She's in the union, so we can't increase the salary right now because she's in the union. But I think the 29,120, it reflects, what?
I don't,
I'm just trying to think, maybe it has to do with her, because it has to do with the changing of her hours and how she, right, because she used to be billed, she was only half-time, and now she's going up to full-time. That's why, that's the difference, right?
This says 25.
29,120, I think I have in my,
Is this 25 hours a week, or?
oh, no, that was before. That was probably 2012. It's now, she's 40 hours a week up at Chris.
let's just.
Okay.
So that's 40 hours, okay? So
So
that's why she's at,
Well, we're not gonna go to, are we gonna go to the new rate of 1484? I'm confused. 'Cause
But
it's-
she-
It's contractual.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
contractual.
but it's, no, right, is that what's in the contract?
That's not in the contract, though.
Whatever, this should be, well, your worksheets might reflect the raises, but then when I told you we had to put everything in at zero because we,
Right.
Okay,
And
hold
the big
on.
problem, and just so you know, the big
Okay,
problem
hold
I
on.
have with this too,
Hold on.
is this puts a secretary position, which we had down at the courts, it puts
Hold on.
$1.80 over what they're
Okay,
getting
hold
paid.
on.
no,
If I
we're not
just-
giving her a raise,
If I
we're only,
just fill you in,
Fill me in.
29,120 divided by a full-time position is $14 an hour. Okay,
1484?
14,
14.
okay. So that
What
does
number
not.
are you using for?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, right, it should be 14, it shouldn't be the 1484.
Well, it is.
Right, thank you. Yeah, we
You're
will.
welcome.
So the 2013 rate is $14.
The 29,120 is $14, which is contractual right now because we've not negotiated any new contracts, and you guys, and we're
Okay.
actually out a year.
40 hours weekly.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right.
Now, just in
Alright.
terms of everybody, before we go forward, just real quickly, in terms of anything that has to do with the union, right now, everything's reflecting a 0%. But let's remember, the contracts were not negotiated, so there's still this year that we have to figure out if we owe any money. We have money going, we have next year. We haven't started any of the, even though you're a year behind on the negotiations, we haven't started on them because we waited to see what kind of financial situation we were in, and we'll have to all discuss where we want to go and then see how we go. But right now, that's why the 29,120 is because she's full-time
Okay.
now up with Chris.
Okay.
Okay? And then the 4,000 is for the senior foreman, who's now being split with some other lines, right? That's why it's 4,000, not 7,500. Yeah,
Right,
that's what we
okay.
have, okay? So that's what the DA, so that's the 98,120. Okay.
And again, and Gene, so the 10 that's, the roughly 10 that's missing from the 2013 is the money that was coming or is gonna come out of another department line there?
So what are you talking about, Jeff?
Well, it has the secretary 19262.
Yeah, that's not right. That's what Chris put in originally.
So, oh, I see, so it's.
The
in-
29,120, that number
Which
over
is the
here.
40, this
That's
time
right
is
here.
40,
You're
okay.
the 29,120, which
I'm
is,
with you, okay.
that's the number,
Okay.
okay? That's because we're looking at worksheets, remember?
No, no, I'm with you. No.
Okay, and then the 4,000 is the next one, okay?
Yeah.
And then I didn't change anything that Chris put in for dues, travel expense, any of that. He brought it down from 5,700 to 3,780. And so his line is now 88,072, which is still a reduction from, even with his $65,000, which
Even with-
actually,
no, no,
it's
even
actually gonna
with- Even with the additional stipend.
well, it's actually gonna come down because I have to take the
The stipend,
22,000 out.
Right, you have to recalculate the whole thing.
Right, but even with the
Okay.
stipend,
You're
it's
gonna
still,
reallocate the 22.
right, but even with even with that,
It's
the
lower.
lowers, the line still came in lower by close to $4,000, but now it'll reflect even less because we're gonna reduce
So
it
that
by
was a
22.
5% saving?
Well, if you go from 92 to 88, but now we're gonna take 22,000 out, so it's gonna go
Do you
down to.
have a 2012
It'll
actual?
be about 5%.
I don't have
A
that.
2012 actual is in the A fund,
Oh, okay.
correct? A fund, not DA,
What,
correct?
for highway superintendent?
Yes.
I think, no, I think Jean,
No, it's
might-
DA.
it wasn't, was it in the DA from
An
last
easy
year? That's what
find.
Jean's asking.
No.
It was in the A,
I think so.
right,
In the A.
right, and we moved it to the DA, which is where it
501.
belongs,
Yeah.
which is where it belongs,
All right.
okay? So actually, the new, for the moment, the new,
Got it.
it would be 66072, okay? Which I need to fix on mine, but I'll do that later. Okay, turning over now to bridges, which was in the DA and is still in the DA. Okay, you have to look at, Chris's worksheet that, we were just looking at. Jeff, I don't know.
Alliance Fund, just, yeah, no,
Okay,
just
okay,
use
well,
it.
that's all. What, basically, Chris has a worksheet here where he took all of the, his guys, broke them out between traffic control, bridges, general repairs, machinery, brush and weeds, and snow removal. So basically, this reflects his reallocation. And so we can, these were sent to you and everything, but the 10346 is his reallocation based on how he's changing his manpower around. Then we basically have 41,500, which is what was in the budget last year, for contractual for Plains Road and for Old 299. And then we have nothing else. Okay, so that's the DA. Then we have state retirement, which you see actually was 18,452, went down to 14,805, and 92, which went down to 82 because of his reallocation. But these numbers will change now that we're changing Chris, so these numbers these will change, okay? And workers' comp, this will all change, but you can see the differences in the numbers of how they all went up, but they'll change based on what we just did.
The proper
okay?
allocation.
The proper allocation. And as of now, you see that the snow is not in DA, will go to DB, and then you guys make a decision, have a conversation about where you want the snow removal.
I think there should be an allocation.
In the A fund, in the DA fund? So
Well,
that's a.
don't we have to do something official to not have it in the
Correct.
DA fund?
Yeah.
So unless somebody wants to do that, I don't think it's an option not to do it.
I'll second that application.
It had, I mean, can you explain, Kevin, the law, so it's in the minutes? Because this is going to, I can assure you, be a big issue at the public hearings about the village residents not believing that the
I'm pretty
snow.
sure it's the highway law.
Do you want me to get the, you want me to get the book? I meant to bring it down.
Well,
So
I'll go get it, 'cause I wanna get some, yeah, I had meant to bring it. And just so you do know, which it is what it is, but if and when we move the snow into DA, it probably will force a override of the cap. Because
So are we doing that law next week?
I don't know, we're gonna wait for Kevin to come read the law, and then we probably,
well, we have to have a public hearing, and that's not gonna happen before you pass the
no,
budget.
you don't have to, we looked at it, remember? You don't have to have we'll have a public hearing on the budget,
Right.
but actually, we can override the cap
It can
during
be
the
a
budget
No,
process.
motion
not
of the
a
It
board.
could just be a
Yeah.
motion of the board.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean overriding the cap, I thought you meant this exemption thing
No.
for moving that I think would take a public hearing.
If we move it into the DB.
Yes.
See, the funny thing is, and I have to go back and look at the budgets from when, my last tenure, but Jean, we had it in the DB fund, it was always in the DB fund, wasn't it?
It's always in the
Yeah,
DB
but it
fund.
shouldn't have been.
But
Yeah.
when I
No.
called in January,
To the
that's
controller's
where,
office.
absolutely,
Right. Well, I
That's
have
where
your
they
notes
said-
on that.
it belonged
In the DB.
in the DB, and there was no ifs, ands, or buts, and I understand, Chris, has that lawsuit from 78 or whatever, and I understand that you found something from 2000.
From highway law, no.
But when I called in January of 2012, what they told me was the road inventory. That was it. That was what they told me.
And then the interesting thing was when I
That
met
was
with,
the only option.
Well, if he said that it's an acceptable practice.
Yes,
That was-
but they were not pleased.
But it is, it's not, so that
It's not illegal.
the acceptable practice is to put it in the A fund, in the
DA
DA
fund.
fund. Right? Isn't that your notes?
However, a road-by-road analysis must be available to document the taxes to town-wide. Some roads will not fall into this town-wide category at all.
And
now is that your notes or that's the?
That's my notes
Right.
from my conversation.
And
I
then the
don't
interesting
think-
thing is, and maybe we can call and get another opinion, but when I had the exit interview with the controller's office, I actually brought this up because it was not in the controller's report, and I brought this up, and
And said it took a
they didn't
Th-
actually
this-
seem to have an answer, believe it or not.
Wow,
They
yeah.
sort of looked at me really perplexed and goes, oh, that's interesting. So, you know, we can go back to the controller, ask them for a written opinion, but, you know, again, let Kevin read the law, the
It's-
town law.
It's very clear. It says in any town, and this is section 277 of the highway law, in any town in which there may be an incorporated village which forms a separate road district, and wherein the roads and streets are maintained at the expense of such village, all property within such village shall be exempt from the levy and collection of taxes levied in the town as provided by section 267 of this chapter, for the repair and improvement of highways, including sluices, culverts, and bridges having a span of less than 5 feet. In addition, a town board in such town may exempt all property within such village from the levy and collection of taxes levied in the town for such items provided for by subdivisions 3 and 4 of section 141. Section 141, so it says the town may decide to exempt the 3 and 4. And 4 says, the amount of money necessary to be levied and collected for the removal of obstructions caused by snow and for other miscellaneous purposes, including the widening of the state highway under a permit, is provided by section 52. And the case on this is Du Bois versus Town Board.
of New Paltz.
And,
Okay, was that in 78? Is that the one?
We
That's the one
made the
Chris
history
was-
books.
this is the one that the village,
What year?
73.
73.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Susan,
Jean?
when we were here,
Yes,
it was in the DB.
yes.
So, how do we know that town boards before you did not exempt it between 73 and
96?
96, that it was exempt, maybe it was exempted before you got here, because that's where it was. I'm
What-
just saying,
what
and it
does-
should
where-
be in the
Where would we
minutes.
find it in our
In the
town,
minutes.
in the minutes?
In
It
the
wouldn't
minutes.
be in our town code somewhere or something?
No, an exception, no, it wouldn't be in your town code.
It seems to me, if there was a lawsuit where the village sued the town,
Mm-hmm.
it's unlikely that there would have been any resolution from that point forward for years, I would imagine. Okay? Because of the nature of the discussion.
Okay, but we're talking about 23 years.
I know, but we're also talking about, this is the law. And unless you specifically exempt, you're entitled to charge for snow removal. So then the discussion should be, okay, what may be fair and equitable beyond what the law provides?
Well, you know, if we're gonna get to people pay taxes by use, we're gonna have
See, this is the
a lot of people in town saying, I have never called the police in the entire time I've lived here.
the village
Why
is
do I have
part
to
of the
pay towards
town.
the police?
The village
Right?
is
So-
part of the town. So for some things, things are paid townwide, including the village. For some things there aren't. And, you know, it would be different if the allocations on other things were
Equitable?
maybe even part of a discussion, intermunicipal discussion. But it's not the way it's been historically. It should have been this way. It should have been by agreement, historically. Like for water and sewer rates and Moriello Pool and all those things should have been agreed to by prior administrations, but they never were.
Oh, well, never mind.
But they never were.
Well, I disagree,
Okay, wait,
because they were, when Susan was the supervisor.
okay. Well, then something happened after that
Right.
where
And
there
those
weren't
election.
agreements. All right? But the point is, there has to be, I think there has to be reasons why we as a town board decide to exempt. So what are the reasons?
Okay, well, this is 2012, so what I don't know, considering it is my hands-on personal experience, that when I arrived at Town Hall in 1998, that it was in the DB. So my question would be, how do I know that between 73 and 98, that a town board did not make an action to exempt it?
What does that action look like, I guess? Is it just
Or-
a declaration at the annual budget
Or a
meeting?
better
Is
question,
it,
Matt, Kitty, what?
I don't know.
is
Is
to
it
ask
a
the attorney, yeah,
resolution?
what
Is it a
what would
motion?
make you exempt
Is
from
it a
that law?
local law?
No, I think the town board says, in addition, the town board in such town may exempt all property within such village from the levy and collection of taxes levied in the town for such items. And I think you could do that on an annual basis.
Okay, so is it,
Every time you talk about a
it's just a
budget,
decision?
I think it's just a decision.
And
Okay,
it could be a decision every year, and it could be
Yeah.
changed. I mean,
Okay.
the thing that I would, I don't know if this is a fair, I don't know what the fair way to do it is, I honestly don't. But if you want to go towards the, the whole conversation about the equitability of the cost of the police to the town outside the village and stuff, and I might have had a different opinion if I didn't see how much money we had in the B fund, and I have to find out if we can take the B fund, fund balance and use it
Right,
towards
to
the
the
DB
DB.
fund. If we could use the B fund to offset the cost in the DB fund, and we put snow plowing in the DB fund, and we can take a bunch of that fund balance, offset it, you're giving a benefit to the town outside the village residents for an expense that, we can sort of offset with the cost of a fund balance, and they're not getting burdened in the DA fund. And so it could be a benefit to the town outside the village residents to finally be getting some benefit in some way, because we have all this money that we can use to do that. Because otherwise it goes into the DA fund, and then they have to pay that tax, and we don't have a fund balance in the DA to offset that expense.
right.
Okay, so from that alone, I'm almost tempted to say put it in the DB because we can offset it with the fund balance. We're not gonna be able to offset it with the fund balance in the DA because we don't have fund balance in the
But why
DA.
are you offsetting anything from the DB? Why do you
Because
need
the
to
cost,
offset?
because if we kept it in the B, if we kept it in, if we put it in the DB, we have to
If
raise.
you put it in the DA.
No, okay. If you, it was in, where is it this year, in
We
DA
can't
or?
put
Yeah.
it, we
It's
can't
in
put
the-
it in the
A, is it A or
DB
DA?
unless we agree to put it
This
in
year?
the DB.
I know.
but,
And this year
I mean,
it's,
just,
that was my little cheat
Yeah.
sheet I had.
if we
Well,
could just
actually, I have
do
it
the
right here.
math a little bit, in the DA,
Here's
Are we
your
in DA or DB?
We're on DA right now, so.
25%
DB, I have it
of the
right here.
DA
I have it,
would get paid by village residents,
Yeah.
okay? And of that
It was an
25%, I would say probably 50% are business owners who do rely on the town to plow the roads so that they can get to work and their employees can get to work and they can have their business open. So I think it's actually a very small amount of homeowners who would be bearing this burden. I don't know what the tax base
It's,
in the village is, but I would think half of it is probably retail.
Well, no,
I don't
actually,
know.
the higher tax retail is actually in the town.
But of the, and just, if the DA bill is $100,000. Of that, 25,000 would come from village taxpayers, and probably half of that, I would think, would come from village business owners, right? The commercial property in the village. So,
That's, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, well, let me
Let's,
just,
what would happen if we were consolidated?
if we were consolidated, we wouldn't be having this discussion, and we'd be,
Right.
we would have
well,
gone home
actually,
at
there
9
would
o'clock
be,
at night.
there would probably,
DA fund.
no,
But
actually, there would
there's no-
probably
there's no-
be-
There would be an A fund.
there'd
There'd
be,
be one fund, there wouldn't be an A fund, there's one fund, the village has one fund, end of story, done.
there'd be one of those
Special
business
Right.
development
But-
districts, and
but
they'd
you-
pay their
by
own
assessed
snow plowing.
value, you're back to the same math.
Well, you have assessed, then, to
Yeah.
what Kitty just said, then you have special districts everywhere.
Right.
But you're not gonna have
Well,
special
wait a
district snow
minute.
plowing, because snow plowing is snow plowing.
No, you would not have, well, unless, to Kitty's point, you have then a business, your business improvement district, and then,
Well,
then
if,
potentially,
if
if you wanted to do
simultaneously
sidewalks and all that.
with consolidation, simultaneously, BIDs are created, simultaneously, at the exact same time. That would be the only way, in
And-
my opinion.
So let me just explain the math to you for a second, and, so we can do a policy decision, we can do a math decision, we don't have to make our decision tonight, we could, wait and see till we get a handle on the fund
We can
balance in
sleep
the
on
A
it?
fund or whatever, but let me just
All right.
explain the math to you for a
Spit it out.
second. Right now, snow plowing was in the A fund, okay, which in of itself, it should have never been in the A fund, it should have been in DA. Okay, that's where it should have been, but it was in the A fund. Okay, so we're talking about $246,000. That's a hefty amount of money. If we, right now, Gene and I had made the decision to put it in the DB because we felt, that that's where it might have really belonged, and then plus the fact that we were already overriding the cap in the DB because of some other things we were doing, and so it was like, let's just override the cap in one line, not have to do it in two lines. If we put it in the DA fund, which again, we can, but we're gonna be putting another $246,000 in, we're already raising taxes by $225,000, and we're only using $10,000 in the fund balance,
Oh,
unexpended fund balance to offset the cost of, and we have no fund balance in DA. DA doesn't
Right.
bring in revenue to have fund balance.
right.
So all I'm just saying is that if we move it into the DA, and I think that was part of my and Jean's conversation, was by putting it into, not putting it in DB, you're gonna have people who would come and scream that we should be doing it, plus now they're gonna be mad we had to override the cap. Now, I do feel comfortable in a lot of ways because of the money we have in the B fund and the fact that I think we'll be knocking down the $94,000 that we're using to offset the B fund, that we're gonna be reducing the amount we raise in taxes there. But just to understand that if we move the snow plowing into DA, it all goes into the amount to be raised by taxes. It doesn't get offset by anything. So that's just a consideration.
Why don't
And-
we move the remaining balance from the A fund, from the snow plowing line to the DA fund?
Say that again?
We're gonna have funds left over from.
You can't do that
Why not?
because that's you move it from A to DA. Well, first we have to see what the fund balance is in A to start with.
Right.
We have to see what kind of revenue, we have to still get a handle on the revenues this
But I
year.
think there's gonna be money there.
Might not be, once we get done with the retirement that just bumped up, once we look at some of the revenues we might not have collected, we might, we have to, that's what, by next week, hopefully, we can get a better handle on what we really believe the fund balance will be. And that's why I don't think some of the decisions, I don't know if we're gonna be able to make tonight, when we get a real handle on what we think the fund balance will be, and then if we can move it, I have to talk to Jean and see, can we really take A fund balance and move it to DA fund balance, because it's the same taxing?
Because it should have
Restriction.
been there anyway.
I understand that, but if we have unexpected expenses like the $150,000, if we didn't get the revenues in because nobody vetted the revenues last year because they didn't have a public hearing and they never adopted a budget, if we have to get a handle on what the fund balance is, what we're gonna use for next year to bring that down, and then do we have money to move over? Hopefully, we'll continue to keep working and tightening up the numbers, and everything's an estimate anyway, so we can wait for this conversation till next week and make the decision when we look at the A fund, we look at the fund balance or whatever. It's just, again, it's all a matter of math and how you want to ultimately tax the taxpayers, and
So if we can untax the taxpayers as the goal, then maybe we should try to be creative.
ultimately, I would believe that it would be the will of this board to try not to tax the taxpayers as much as we possibly can.
Right.
And if there's money in the bank that we could use intelligently to cover the cost of delivering the services without taxing them, that's our responsibility and our obligation.
So we may not be able to resolve this for a little bit longer time then.
Well, that's
Till
why,
we get a fix on more of our
well, that's why I'm saying that, you know, again, I was shocked to see how much, you know, Gene and I had seen when we were doing the budget that there was a lot of money in the B fund, but it was, the state changed the coding. So they had something as, like $500,000 as assigned fund balance. So when Gene and I looked at it, if we knew that was just unappropriated, we would have like said, no taxes in the B fund, you know, but because it said assigned, you know, we didn't want to take the liberty of doing that, you know, so we did what we thought was responsible, thinking that that was, you know, assigned. It ends up that when I came back the next day and talked to Patty about that, and she called up to the auditor said that the controller's office changed the way they designate things. It's crazy, whatever, blah, blah, but it ends up being, so that's when Patty and I sat down today to start to sort of say, well, no, it's actually you take the appropriated and unappropriated, subtract out what was paid for retirement in advance. Then what we have to do is now go look at what are our expenses till the end of the year in terms of personal services and everything else. It's still an estimate, subtract that out, and that should give us a real handle what the fund balance is. Look at what money from the planning, you know, the escrow money is commingled. Do I think we're gonna still end up with $400,000? Yeah, and then we put the $200,000 we're now getting from Time Warner, we're back up to $600,000. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of money in that fund to play with that, and there's not a lot of expenses that go against the B fund. It's the building department, planning and zoning. You're never gonna spend that money. So if we can use that money to offset the burden to the taxpayers, that's what we should be doing. And so, you know, if there is money in the fund balance in the A fund that we can move over to DA and release the.
If the DB people paid for it, why should DA people get the benefit for it?
Say that again?
That's
That
an important
is the question.
question.
I'm trying to sit here and look
Yeah.
at the numbers here too.
Mhm.
Is that we raise those revenue, because don't forget, when you get your tax bill, your bill will be ADB, you know.
Yeah,
So
you
why would
raise-
we use funds that came out of our general fund to benefit one?
Well, you're not, because remember, the DB.
Well, no, we're just doing one fund.
No,
though.
no, I know. The B fund was raised on the back of the town outside the village,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay?
solely.
Okay, now, I understand if we put snow plowing into DB, those people are getting burdened, but we might offset that cost with the fund balance possibly. If you put it into the DA fund, those town outside the village residents are still paying for part of it, in addition to the other residents that didn't help to raise that money.
Right, so, let me ask you a question.
No.
The way that you proposed that we do it as a possible method to resolve it though is having the excess money raised from DB taxpayers.
No, it's raised from B taxpayers, but we could maybe transfer it to DB, I don't know.
No, the DB fund has the money in it.
No, it's the B fund that has the money. The DB fund has,
Oh, the B money, but
it's
the
a B
B
money.
money is the same thing.
Yeah, no, I know that, but we have to see if we can move it. If we can,
Gene,
I think you can move it one
The
time.
B fund taxpayers, the town outside of the village
Right.
paid for that.
Right.
So the money's sitting in there, it technically belongs to those individuals.
Mhm.
Yes.
So that in the future, if there was $600,000 we needed to that, we could use the fund balance and reduce what we need next year to $100,000, right?
Right.
If we had excess money.
Right.
But you're proposing to take the B money and use it for a DA expense.
No, we're not.
I
You
am
can't do
not.
that. You can't do that. You have to
I
use
would never do that.
You have to use the B fund for the DB, because it's all the same tax base.
I know, but what
That's
you,
why they're
can't-
saying
can't
to
say you
take the
can't-
DA
Yeah.
appropriation and put it in DB.
that makes no sense.
If you believe
though.
it's a DA
But
appropriation.
what
I
you're
mean,
doing is
but-
you're
Right.
making the Bs pay for it.
Well, it depends if you
Yeah.
really believe it or not.
What Susan is saying is if the snow plowing is in the DB and the excess is in the B, and if it is allowable to use some of the excess from the B to move it to the DB, because that's the same tax base.
But I understand, but what you're doing is, you're taking and you're saying, okay, we need to use this money up, so let's take
No,
an
no, 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 no,
expense
no.
that's an A expense and move it to B.
Well, it depends on if you believe it's an A expense or
No,
not.
if you
I mean,
The law
believe,
says it's an A expense.
fine, if you believe it's an A expense, then that's what you should
Well,
stick with.
Let's,
It goes in DA. That would be your argument. It goes in DA.
Well, I think The only way to put it in DA is if somebody on the board makes a motion to take it out of DA.
Go out of DB and
It's,
put it back into DA.
No,
was- it
no,
wasn't-
Take it
no, you
and
would
put
have
it
to make a motion to
properly in
exempt
D-
the village
DB.
Oh, if we did.
and put it into the DB. It belongs in DA. If you don't want it to be in DA, then somebody on the board would make a motion to exempt the village on this year's bill from that fund, and it could go into DB. But I think that's the only
Okay.
way we can keep track of being consistent with the law.
How about if I make a suggestion, if for the moment, for the moment, we can have the budget, we can move it into DA, which I don't have a problem doing. I mean, the law is the law. I think it's a way to make equitable to the taxpayers for some other expenses we pick out. I mean, and as we keep going through this, we'll end up looking at the numbers, the amount to be raised for taxes, we'll look at the impact, and we'll just make some decisions when we see
But,
the
I mean,
impact.
You keep sounding like you're apologizing for doing this, but the fact is, that's the way to do it, and we have to do
Mhm.
something to not do it that way.
Mhm.
You know,
So
you
let's
have
just move
to.
it into, let's just move it into the DA
Okay.
fund.
Okay.
Let's just move it into the DA fund.
Kevin, can I ask you, is that town law or general municipal law?
Highway law.
It's highway law.
Town highway law, or town municipal highway law?
277 refers to 146, or excuse me, 277 refers to 141.
Okay. So for the moment, let's move it into the DA fund, which it certainly didn't belong in the A fund, that's for sure.
Right.
So let's move it into the DA fund. Meanwhile, Jean, I suspect, is probably gonna call the controller's office again to try to get another opinion to either contradict or confirm the opinion she got last time.
And if
And let's
the
just do it
board
right.
can always just make a motion to exempt the village, but I think that's
we
the
want to.
clean way to do
Yeah.
it.
I mean, let's get,
Then there has to be articulated reasons for the exemption.
okay. Right
I mean,
now,
what the case law says basically, that, plowing the roads outside the village has a benefit to village residents.
Yeah,
They're
they can-
part of the overall town. And I know they have their own separate budget for it, and they have their own little roads there for it, but, it's still 25% of the overall bill. And there are 7,000 people that live in the village, and 7,000 people live in the town. I don't see that as a big problem.
and I will just say once again, right now, this entire discussion that we've had for 35 minutes probably, is another reason for consolidation.
Right.
Because for us to waste our time talking about who should get charged to plow the roads in the town outside the
We
village.
should just have a little neon sign that goes off every time.
We're wasting our time.
We wouldn't have to have this
Okay, okay,
conversation.
so actually, so what we'll do is, right now, we'll move it to the DA, because we believe by town law, that's the way it should
Highway
be.
law.
By highway law, that's the way it should be. However, Jean did get an opinion from the controller that totally contradicts it, so let Jean just double check that, and then we can always go back. But Jean did call in January. As soon as she got elected, the first thing she did was call the
Yes,
controller
I
to
know.
check
She
that.
sent us a memo. It was the last email I got from her.
You know what? I had time in January. Did you see? I was so busy doing town stuff in
Okay.
January, and then I got
I know.
wrapped up
Okay,
in
yeah.
work.
so right now, for planning purposes for the moment, it's going into the DA unless Jean finds out information from the controller that contradicts it and reopens the conversation. Otherwise, it's in the DA. for the moment,
If there is
okay?
something that contradicts it, they better amend the law.
Right.
Okay,
Somebody
so-
forgot to tell,
Okay,
right. the-
So-
And before we leave that
Mr.
page,
McKinney.
Yes.
is anyone going to kill me if we go back to the superintendent line? If you
Yeah.
do choose anyone, you're gonna kill me.
Yeah, I think I will.
You'll kill me?
I think so.
Okay, good. So, will I come up
Put
with?
you out of your misery?
Well,
But-
Kitty, and I just have to, because Kitty, I don't like to do these decisions without mapping. And I know the word mapping is not a word, but I
It's a
just
new
don't like
word.
using it.
didn't you say we couldn't go back?
Yes, I'm gonna go back.
I could, but I won't.
She said she's gonna kill me, and that could be an.
Well, I could-
And see, he doesn't care.
Well,
No,
I
and
do care.
I could stop him, but Jeff, go ahead,
Well,
because
here's
you've
what
obviously
we
been
can
working
do.
on this for a long
Well,
time,
well,
so,
I'll go very quick.
Nobody's stopping it.
okay.
I'm
moving this
here's
to
what I'm
DA,
gonna do.
right?
I would put an increase of, I would like to propose, make a motion that the stipend be $19,500. Kitty, so you can feel better, out of that $19,500, $10,920, that looks like it'll be coming out of special districts. So that leaves an 8580 increase. Now, again, that's just doing the math sitting here, so that would make the new one 62.5 compared to 65.
How much comes out of special district?
It looks like it's gonna be, if I did my math right, 10,920.
Well, all I can say is it's always nice to have somebody make a concession so that both sides feel that there was some equity in it. So,
And I'm 580 above what you were asking.
I'm not opposed to Jeff's idea. You know, I'm not opposed to that idea.
How many people were you basing that on again?
Oh, no, I'm basing, I'm basing, it's tough to base it.
Okay.
It's
why
not
don't
as
you-
much as people, it's where I can get the money
Well,
from
can-
and what I think
well,
it
can-
is.
in all
So I'm
fairness,
basing the increase on also the people. So it's gonna be 19 people, counting the part-time, and a secretary. So you're gonna have, you're going from 9 people to 19 people. So you're almost doubling it. So the increase is, I'm still a little shy on the increase, it's 40% on the increase, I agree. But some are, that's including secretary part-time.
We have two.
He already has a part-time secretary, part-time. So
All right,
my
well-
proposal would be to raise it 19,000, to make, I
Did I say
apologize,
I would kill you?
to make the stipend 19,000. I thought that could be the answer to some of my prayers.
But you don't have to hurt it. You could just kill it.
That could be one
So-
of my, that could be answer to many prayers.
Well, we could do one of two things. We can vote on it now, or you could think about it even more when you have time and you're not doing it at the last minute, bring it
I
back
do
up
it at the
next.
last minute.
No,
I
I'm
do
saying,
calculator.
I'm saying bringing it up next
No,
time.
I'm
I
very
just
good at
have one
mathing.
question. How much are we paying the water contractors?
We're
I know we
paying-
did that contract and
We're
I
doing,
cannot remember.
I can tell you, we're doing, it is $27,180 for sewer, and it is $10,800 for water.
It still puts
So
us
it's
way, way
27,
below the salaries
37.
we have not.
I know.
37, it's
I know.
37, it's about $38,000, but it's
probably-
no, 30,000, but there's no medical
benefits.
benefits
So
and no,
top of your head,
workers'
top of my
comp
head,
and-
but there's over 100,000 still less than what we're paying them now.
Okay.
well,
And Chris, I does work, he is truly, I am amazed at the rates of what Chris gets paid, and not even just because she's here, but also what Roseanne gets paid. That amazes me too, for the amount of hours that,
yeah.
those are 2 very full-time jobs. So anyway, that's my motion. So my motion would be for 19,500.
Second.
Any
other
discussion? Okay, Kevin?
Well, but that's not
We're gonna-
Is that a
determining
motion to
not
reopen the
determining the
vote?
exact appropriation.
Well, but
It's
I'm giving you
The,
directional.
the bottom line of what you want.
So the bottom line of what I'm,
So split that 10,000, like 50% in buildings and grounds, and, no, you said 10,000
I'm
in
just doing
special
I'm about
districts.
special districts would be about 10,000.
But what about buildings and grounds?
You're still gonna probably take, could be a big chunk of it.
25, 25, 25, and 25, I think is what he said.
Right. I get most
But
of,
we
I
have
get-
7 special districts.
I think we can work
I
on
just
the
added those,
allocation.
I just took it, I just did
Okay,
real
you wanna
quick
just
math.
vote on the dollar amount? Is
Yeah.
that what you wanna vote on?
Just
And
wanna
then-
vote on a dollar
And
amount.
then you're gonna dump it on Susan to allocate?
Yeah, of
Or,
course,
okay,
because
I'll do the allocation, I'll do it. I got a rough draft right
So
here.
can you just give me the numbers once again? It's down from 22,000 to,
It's $2,500
to-
less than what was requested.
So 19.5. But what makes me feel better though, Kitty, is it's 8580 is actually going to be coming out of
At
that.
the
The
end.
rest will be coming out of special
we
right,
have to change
Right.
it.
districts.
And buildings and grounds?
And those are the grounds, I apologize.
That's what you meant,
That's what I
right?
meant, yes.
I thought so.
Any more
Well,
discussion?
do we want, well, this is
Well,
discussion
Kevin said
time,
aye.
right?
and
Well,
I
no,
said
Kevin made
aye.
Jeff made a motion, Kevin seconded, so we're in discussion phase.
I mean, my only discussion is that I know nobody in the nonprofit or private or self-employed world who is seeing any kind of increase this year. However,
And it's not an increase in the current rate that he's being paid for his position, it's only because he's assuming additional responsibility.
well, that's the
reason.
only reason
That's the only reason.
I am going to consider.
And also,
Oh.
we look back in history, Kitty, do
Okay.
remember that previous
I know.
supervisor had an issue with superintendent and continued year after year to decrease the salary.
Okay,
So,
well, wait a minute then. All right, so to go back to what Kitty's saying then, can we budget it such that the portion, the 8580 that Jeff is talking about, that is a piece of this stipend, but is coming out of the DA, that is a separate line in the DA as the stipend, as opposed to adding it to the salary, so that the salary remains at the same that it's at what he was elected at, and the stipend is strictly for the additional
That's correct.
responsibilities, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's out of the DA fund.
It's gonna be
DA
out of,
salaries in DA.
I know, so-
The
salary of course-
8580 will be.
Oh, no, I know, the
Yeah.
salary, of course, is gonna be the DA fund, that's where it belongs.
No,
well, no, it won't be, it's
okay,
gonna be stipend.
no.
No, his salary, his, for the
No.
one that you're
The
taking.
salary, the basic salary
Susan?
stays in
Yes,
the
I
DA.
understand, I get it, I just don't know if you guys were talking about putting the stipend back into the DA.
No,
Yes.
it's gonna be allocated.
A portion
it's
of
gonna be
it.
Yeah, okay,
prorated.
okay, okay, so Jeff's gonna figure it out, you guys make, you made a motion, you seconded it. Kevin?
I seconded it, Susan.
I know that, so now you have to vote.
Okay, are you saying all in favor?
No, I'm doing an individual vote, because,
Aye.
thank you. Jeff?
Uh,
Jean?
Aye.
Kitty?
Aye.
Okay, I'm a no. I'm a no.
You're holding
He asked
up
for
for the-
65 and I'm
Work.
giving him,
Okay.
Thank you very much.
How many times can you
Thank
re-vote
you.
the same
You
item?
deserve
I don't know, I'm
every
sure we'll do
penny
it
of
14 more
work.
times.
I don't know. I'm not sure that you're allowed to keep bringing it up.
Well, then we should have brought it up this
Okay,
time.
let's- Can we just move
Well,
on
wait
now?
a second, because Kitty thinks we shouldn't have brought it up, we shouldn't have brought it up this
No,
time.
no, there is a limit on how many times
Okay.
you can bring, I remember this from a certain health increase that was being brought up by
Anyway,
a
let's,
former
let's-
supervisor.
Oh, I'll look it up.
Okay,
That will
anyway,
be one
let's,
of my homeworks tomorrow.
okay.
Okay.
I
Good,
will
good,
do
because if you
this.
tell me if we bring it up, I'll bring it up next time.
Do you guys want to take a quick break?
Can we take a quick break?
Can we take a
I wanna
5-minute
get a
bio
soda.
break?
I
Okay,
haven't
we
been
are
smoking
going
at
to
all, but should
leave
I have a-
this building at 11
Well, they turn,
o'clock.
No, I agree, 11 o'clock.
Yep, so we're gonna
Okay,
take,
so we
make a
may
motion
have to
for a quick
table some
5-minute
of
bio
this,
break.
right?
Okay, but I have to go to the.
Thank you.
okay, go ahead.
Now I only have half my clothes on.
Oh, because of the snow?
Yeah, until
Okay.
I can check on it.
Okay.
I'm not gonna go with it.
Well,
Just because.
well, it's tentative because we might change it back, but it's, okay,
Right,
you know what,
it's
actually,
going to take an action of this board to
Okay,
take it out
you know what,
of
actually-
DA.
actually,
Right.
Am I
because-
correct?
That's
we-
right, so
Okay.
it's in, so I vote no.
Okay.
okay, wait a second. Can we backtrack for a second? I mean, we just did the vote, but we did say that we were gonna do this, put it in here tentatively, but we're gonna wait for Jean to get the controller's, opinion.
We can go back and vote on it again.
That's what I think,
Yeah, I
can't we?
think we can do it
I don't,
later
you know
on.
how, is
I
there
think
more than once, is it multiple times?
Well, we can still make
now-
changes, because if we get,
For now,
All right.
it has to go in DA. It
Right.
has to go into DA.
Right.
Right, because you just voted on it.
No, because the law says it goes into DA unless we agree to exempt the village.
If we've
So you
made a
have decided
mistake,
not to exempt it.
for the moment,
We
until you
haven't
come
made
back.
a decision
No, no,
on
what Kevin's saying is, Kevin's saying right now that, the law says it should be in DA unless we exempt it.
Right.
You want to double check with the controller. If the
we
controller
decide.
says that it should be in DA unless we exempt it, then we have to make a choice
I
whether we
mean,
want to exempt
right,
it or
if
not,
we have to
right?
fix an error, a legal error, then we'll do
Well,
that.
we
But
have to, if we think there's a more equitable allocation, we can work on that too. So, I'm
Okay,
open to that.
it doesn't matter to me to outvote it. I'm very accustomed to it. Don't worry. I'm fine. Let's
Is
go.
it painful being wrong that frequently, or do you get?
No, it's not that I'm wrong, it's that the rest of you
I
are.
just wanted to make sure you had the right.
Okay.
I knew I loved
I
you.
have the right
I'll
outlook.
make a
I
motion.
You have the
knew I
wrong
loved you.
outlook.
Are we gonna just, let's just go into the warrants and get them over with?
No,
we
I
have
know.
to do the- I wanna
Yes,
finish the
please.
DB fund,
All right.
and then we're gonna get out of
We're
here.
not
at
gonna
11
Okay,
finish DB.
so DB is going to be really quick because there's really not much you guys are going to ask about because there's.
We just
not-
did it.
Well, because the snowplow was the big issue and stuff, so really honestly with the DB, it's really Chris reflecting, you always had general repairs in DB. Chris put down how he thinks the guy should be allocated, we took,
What's this hydrofracking brine line here for?
okay, we can actually get done with this really quickly. Okay, so anyway, general repairs was always in DB.
And I apologize, we're in the DA.
General repairs was always in DB. It's staying in DB. He allocated based on what he thinks. The one thing we did, we have to do though, is we're gonna be reducing, and that's probably why you see in, if you have this sheet, the stuff that's in yellow is what's getting changed.
Yep.
And the reason why, Jill, okay, if you, she didn't make that change, because I think we did that one at the 6 o'clock at night or something. Yeah, I think 6:30 before I ran home and came right back. We're reducing the contractual in the DB general repairs by $90,000 because of chips. So we're taking that out, we're putting it into a chips line, and then we're showing it as revenue in the chips line. So this one line will get reduced, and instead of 602,277, it's gonna be 512,277.
And isn't Chip's line right here? It's in here. It's a 6-9 line, something like that. It should be built right in here. If you're putting the 90,000 in the revenue, the 90,000
It's gonna be in
needs to
chips, yeah. She said there is,
expense.
Patty said there is a chips line. She just probably didn't have time to do it because
Oh,
we
you're
talked
right.
about it at 6
But
o'clock tonight.
Okay,
Okay, so at 6 o'clock, we were finalizing everything, and that's why I have right here, chips minus 90, 51227. When she reflects it, we'll, okay? And we're moving to chips line, budget, and revenue.
Okay.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions about general repairs? Okay, great. Machinery was always in DB, so right now you've got your numbers reflecting personnel based on what Chris thinks. Contractual, I didn't change anything, and you've got the 144 versus 143 last year.
And I just
So
want to
it's
make sure, Chris, there was a big error we had. We left off payments on a couple trucks last year. Are they,
They just, there was a question, I guess, about why there's so much money left in snow this year.
right?
It went from 100 plus down to 40, because we just made the truck payment.
So is it, did we
No,
put
wait
that
a
in the
minute.
right spot? Because what happened is
hold on a second.
it was never in the right spot.
You're telling me you made your truck payments from the snow removal
Half
line?
the truck payment comes out of snow, half.
No,
Because-
no, it does not.
No, it's got to all come out of equipment line.
Is it?
That's where it was.
Okay, hold on a
Right.
second. What kind of a payment is it? A lease or a?
Municipal lease.
Okay, then that's fine. It comes out of a contractual line. So that's the appropriation that they have determined, that you use it 50% for
50%
snow.
for plowing,
and
50%
fine.
for
Okay.
repairs.
So it's not a bond. They didn't borrow for it.
No.
Okay,
And that's back in here this year, though. I mean, it's in here, okay, good, because I know we had missed it the previous year, and it cost us dearly.
Okay, so 50% of it now is in the DA.
Yeah, we just changed that.
Right.
Okay. So is everybody okay with the highway department machinery? Hello, hello, hello? Is everybody okay with highway machinery? Can we move on?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just waiting to hear an answer.
Yeah.
That's all. Okay, thank you. Brush and weeds. Brush and weeds was always in the DB. It reflects again, you know, how Chris is allocating his manpower, and so it goes down just a little bit because he's got less time allocated in brush and weeds.
He took out the equipment.
Well, and also if you look at the
That's
personal
why
services. Oh, because he took equipment out of personal services?
No, he took the
came-
equipment
10,000
out.
Came out of equipment for brush and weeds.
Right, 20.
You know,
Where-
so that, now, are you going to pick
Yeah.
up?
Yeah,
are you
where's,
doing- I
where's
noticed something in your
pickup?
budget, too. Are you doing pickup this year or no? Next year?
We're doing leaf pickup, we're not doing,
Cleanup.
brush pickup.
Really?
In the spring, we'll be doing back.
Because I noticed your budget went way down, so is that where you,
Brush pickup in the spring of this year cost us $44,000.
so that's why I saw the reduction in your
We're
line.
doing it once a year.
So this is actually something we need to discuss, guys, is that, so next year in 2014, in 2013, thank you, 2013, and 2014 maybe, 2013, we will not be picking up brush, we'll only be picking up
We'll
leaves.
be picking up brush in the spring and leaves in the fall.
Rather
We're still
than,
picking up brush,
Right.
instead of twice a year.
Is that
Okay.
twice, you've done just,
We
we've been
brush
paying one?
once a year,
Okay.
leaves once a year.
But-
Okay, that is
Brush
good.
twice a year.
Okay, but also what you did tell me, which we might want to just tell everybody, is you said though that what the guys are doing is they are going around and if there's small piles out there, they're picking up the small
Yeah,
piles. And
Instead
so,
of leaving it for
Right.
one time, you know, when we get an inclement day, the crew goes out and we chip piles that are out there, people, storm damage, stuff like that. If someone gets a tree that comes down, they call, we go pick it up. And during this time, we're also giving amnesty at the recycling center, they can bring in whatever they want.
I don't know if people can hear you because you're so far off camera. Would people,
There's
so you know what, I don't know, you probably should be coming
Well,
up and
amnesty
saying.
for
What?
brush.
You should probably come back up here and say what you're saying, because it's not on camera, nobody's hearing it. And so,
And also, so there will not be spring cleanup,
There will be spring cleanup
oh, there will,
of brush,
but
but not fall
household
cleanup
items.
of brush. No,
Just
we,
fall
we,
cleanup of leaves.
yeah,
But
we
you-
haven't done household items. That's something
For a very
Laura's
long
been
time.
taking over.
Oh, so it's in her budget.
That's in, yeah,
Okay.
that's her
Okay.
game.
And that's only brought out now.
So you were saying about amnesty?
Yeah, there's amnesty for this month and next month. Any brush you want to bring at to the recycling center, you can bring in
For free.
for free.
and you're doing this spring cleanup, where you're gonna be doing brush in the spring,
Brush
You're
in
gonna
the
be doing
spring,
leaves in
leaves
the
in the fall.
fall.
Yeah.
but you're, right now, if there's a storm or something and there's small
Right.
piles.
Once a week,
Yeah,
once
exactly.
bi-weekly, we send the chip truck out and it runs the town and it picks up anything that people have put out.
Right,
Good.
We're just trying to keep away from the piles the size of houses
which
that we
costs a fortune,
had to deal with last year,
right.
or the
Okay.
beginning of the
No,
year.
thank
So
you.
it's spring brush, fall leaf.
There you go.
And that will
Yep.
save
And
us how
small
much?
piles throughout.
Just-
It was $44,000 for us to do it this year.
Yeah, well, you needed to cut your budget, so.
So there you go, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, but
And-
I don't see 44,000 through September of 2012.
No,
And
There was
you
never
said
enough
it
money
was
in the budget to
spring.
cover all
Oh,
this,
okay,
all the brush.
so,
All we did was cut
brush-
the machinery out.
no, I'm saying in your expenses. You're saying it costs 44,000 for you to do the spring
Mhm.
pickup. And what we have under actual expenses 2012 through September 17th is a total of 30,400. Where did the other $14,000 get charged for brush and weeds? I'm just asking. I don't expect you to know the
Mhm.
answer. I'm just asking.
Okay, so we'll
Are you
get the
talking about,
answer.
you said 44,000 was spent this year?
In brush and weeds,
Okay. So then,
in the spring.
but it only shows 20,000 in the budget to start, and it shows 20,000
No, we
spent.
No,
didn't.
it doesn't.
No,
It
it's
shows
36.
36,000, but it only shows 30,000, the total
No,
budget.
I'm looking here.
But that was
That's
as of a month
equipment,
ago.
No, I know,
So
no, I know,
maybe
but
in
I'm
the
looking at
last month.
2020, I'm looking at here. So right now, they only
And
do,
he's saying it costs $44,000, and I'm saying only $30,000 is accounted for.
But this
Where's
is,
the other 14,000?
I'm sure it's in
this
probably
is
some
only
other damn
until
line.
September, so maybe in the last
No,
month.
but he's saying they
He
already
said it
spent
was in the
It's not in
spring.
snow line.
Yeah, we've only done it in the spring.
Okay.
Where
Oh.
is other $14,000
Okay,
for spring cleanup, right?
Mhm.
time to do the
Okay.
warrants.
No, it's not. Spring
Almost,
cleanup.
almost.
Okay,
I agree.
let's just finish because we don't have that much, okay, guys? We have, okay, snow removal we did right now, it's in the DA for the time being. Then we have traffic control. That was in the A fund. It is now in the DB fund. I don't know why it was in the A fund. Well, I don't know why it was in the A fund, and I certainly don't
Traffic
think-
control is signage.
Right, and it does belong in the DA fund, right? It belongs in the DB fund? Well,
It's a town, it's town-wide signage, isn't it?
Yes,
And we have to change them all because of state law.
2015.
are these the signs that go into the, in the village too?
No, the
No.
village
Right,
does
village has
their
its own,
own
village does their own
signs.
signs.
I don't know if they do the new ones.
Did they have to
Well,
do
The
Did
this?
village
Did they
has
have to
their own
comply?
signs in the A fund.
Everyone's supposed to change them, whether they
Right.
budgeted for it or not. We
No,
have
they make their own, they
Chris, what
would
kind
use
of
the
But the
sign.
village is gonna
I'm
be
sorry?
doing their own
What kind of
signs.
stop
everything.
signs,
Street
regulatory
signs.
signs, hazard
By
signs.
law, you have to change them all.
Yep, it has to go from, it's called high-intensity prismatic.
Okay, so that should be in the B fund, right?
It was in the A
The-
fund, Gene and I moved
The
it to the DB
DB,
fund.
yeah.
DB.
It was in the A fund, Gene and I moved it to the DB fund. Because the village is doing their own signs, we're doing our own signs, it should be in the DB fund.
And there are no signs that the town puts in the village,
No.
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 so it's DB,
Which is where Gene and I have it, so is everybody
Makes
okay with that?
right? Sounds fine?
Sounds good?
Everybody okay?
I'm good.
Okay, good. Okay, so that's the eighth, that's that. Check mark, okay, garage was in the A fund. Gene and I moved it to the DB fund. What I was told today that I think the reasoning why it was in the A fund was because it was a building. But the highway department has their garage, the village has their DPW. Gene and I put it into the DB fund, but it had been in the A fund. and I was told it was because it was a building and that's why, so.
But it's a
again,
highway garage.
I understand it, I am just
Okay.
explaining what I
Okay.
was told for the logic of why it was in the A fund.
Okay.
I know why you and I moved it into the DB fund, because it
Okay.
is a highway garage, but there are 3 other people who have to make a decision of how they would like to see this reflected.
Okay.
Since the town has
I'll
their
just
own
keep my
highway
mouth
garage,
shut.
it should go in the DB fund.
Does everybody agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm
so-
sorry, I agree, yeah,
You agree?
I agree.
Kitty, do you agree?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so it got moved from the A, and it's now in the DB fund, and there is no personal expenses, it's just the cost of what Chris thinks. You'll see, I didn't change, he said it's 26,178, and it's 26,178. So that's the DB fund.
So moved.
So would everybody like to?
Okay, well,
accept
all
the-
of the state retirement, social security, workers' comp, unemployment, disability, medical, dental, EAP, it's all gonna change based on the fact that you move snow removal, so all of that has to be amended.
Yes, I know, it's a lot of work to keep doing.
But,
Okay.
but we can approve
As amended, as
everything that was in
recommended,
here.
as
certainly.
recommended.
Yes.
So would somebody like to move that?
I did.
Somebody like
Done.
to second it?
Aye.
Second.
Second.
Okay, Kitty seconding it?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody in favor?
Yes.
Okay, motion so carried.
Nay.
Okay,
Nay?
Because we don't
Snow.
have the snow.
okay.
Told you she was helpful with that.
Okay,
Okay,
warrants.
so that's the DA, the DB, and the B fund. Next week, we will do the A fund, and we will go back and revisit snow plowing if there's anything that would make change our decision. Okay, so with that, do I have a motion to accept the warrant?
Do you have my list?
No, I never saw your list.
Oh, well, I had a list.
It was right on top. I saw it.
Um,
In fact, I even added 2 items to it.
Did you?
Yeah, because, you know, a couple negative balances. We were writing checks against.
Oh,
I don't know what,
Oh. Couple
I-
yeah, I wrote on, there was a couple things that we were writing, checks on that there's no money in that, those accounts. That's all.
Only
because, budget modifications are not
okay.
timely.
Yeah, so I was hoping we could do a budget modification.
I have,
This comes from here.
Oh, well, here, Kitty, you could go through that,
all right.
but
This
I
here.
wanted my list.
I don't have any of your stuff. I'm good.
Well, does anybody have the list? Because I do not.
I don't have the,
I'm just trying to put everything
Well,
back.
She gave you a list of the.
Do you want me to go? I'll go look in my
Yeah, please have a look, 'cause
mailbox.
there was a list?
There are those items that you want to remove the amounts from this.
This
It's
is
not
the
that I want to
fund
remove them, I
balance,
just want to make sure they're answered.
This is the
Otherwise, I
fund
can't in good conscience do that.
I didn't, usually, you know what, Jean, do me a favor? Shoot.
She probably has a copy of it.
No, I was gonna say, look at, Jean, see if there's, stuff in my box, because she might have put the answers in my box.
Okay.
And then maybe Carol got it and didn't. I don't know. I didn't see anything.
Nothing?
I got nothing.
I can't say that it wasn't necessarily put into my box and Carol took it and didn't realize, but I don't know. I can't answer that because Patty and I never talked about, I was too busy working on this budget stuff too.
I can't remember what they were.
Okay,
So
well,
do you know what,
yeah, well, I don't see any escrows.
Just tell me
Which means they're all in there.
522,420.
is this your stuff, Jean, or is this extra?
Actually,
That's
the
yours.
individual line that's
I think
negative.
I had, something was being charged to sewer 5 that,
Oh, yeah.
it
supposed to be
was sewer
one.
5, it was being charged to the A fund.
Well, sewer five,
Oh, well, we left a note saying that starting in January, all that stuff, it was being billed to B and G,
You have another one?
right? And it all has to start going to the appropriate.
what I will tell you, what I can, well, we're having 2 conversations, but what I'll tell you guys is,
Yeah.
I met with Kim
Here they
Bond
are.
today. I met with,
Yeah, why? Why?
why what, Jean?
Get, 522,7,310
Black
and
Creek.
subdivisions.
wait. Yeah, Black Creek Construction, okay, Dave Cloud.
But that's an escrow.
Okay.
It says an escrow right there.
Yeah, and this
These
is
are all
all the
escrow.
A-Fund
But-
Buildings
no, no.
and Grounds.
Um,
A-Fund Buildings and Grounds
Because it's-
is being charged.
because it's probably a due from, because it's sewer district stuff, and there's probably no money in there. I don't know. Oh, this
I
is Dave
can't- I
Clauser. Is
can't.
this, oh, wait a second. No, I can tell you.
Okay.
Wait a second. Is this Dave Clauser? Is this Dave
It
Clauser?
appear- Yes, it
Okay,
appears to be.
what this is, Dave Clauser, but wait a second, well, what I can tell you is Dave gave a bill for the work that he did on, the water and sewer contract. And, because Dave is the one who negotiated the environmental consultant's water and sewer contract,
Yes.
okay? So, when, guys, can we have one conversation for the moment, because it probably makes it hard for people on TV. When, what was gonna say, that when, Dave gave his bill for the time he spent negotiating the sewer contract and the water contract with environmental consultants, we took the time that he spent on those contracts, and we broke it down to each of the districts based on how the contracts are being broken out and being budgeted. So like here, the water contract for 10,800
Right.
is being, 70% is going to water one, 8%
Yeah,
is water
but-
two.
Okay,
But that's
Okay.
not where it's coming from.
but that's not where it's being charged, Susan.
I'm only explaining the first part, I can't answer the
Okay.
second part, okay?
Okay.
So I'm explaining the first part, that's why you see it all broken down,
Right,
okay?
that we
So-
understand.
Well, I don't know if you would have known that we did that.
Well,
Okay,
it doesn't, but we don't actually
but
have
why-
to
why
know
it's
the
going into- but why
why.
it's
We
going
need to know the
into-
where.
The building contractual expense, that I cannot answer you.
Okay, well, it was on a note. I understand that with sewer 6, we have a lot of due to, due froms, but the sewer 5 was my question, like, why are we charging sewer 5 to the A fund? Because what I had heard up to this point was sewer 6,
And I learned today that actually sewer 5 was also being charged to the A fund.
But, yes.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you today that I
Right.
learned that also sewer 5 is being charged to the A fund for whatever reason, I
due
don't
to,
know.
due froms?
Because I met with Ken Bond today, and one of the questions that we talked about was, how are we going to solve the fact that all this money is owed to the A from the different sewer and water funds?
my
And
God.
he basically said that we should do a revenue anticipation note, I think is that the correct term, and that we should just do that, and then basically we'll pay everybody back, and then the water and sewer districts will then start to make their payments, and over 5 years, and that's probably the most equitable way to do it. And then he took all of the folders on, all the binders and folders on all the sewer and water, he's going through them all, he's gonna come back with a recommendation. In addition
Does he
to
need to do this income survey for
Not
bonding?
for the bond anticipation, I don't think. I
Okay,
don't think so.
that was the big holdup last year.
What you're talking about
was-
sewer 6, and that has to do with environmental funding, getting a grant, getting
The
some kind of
EFC
stuff from the
funding.
EFC.
Right.
That's EFC
That's
funding.
not
This
the-
is just a bond anticipation to
Alright.
borrow money, to pay everybody back,
To
so
go
that
to
we can start
public
to,
All right,
market.
so we
let
can
me go-
basically,
Okay,
at least get everybody back on track, and then have them pay it back. So that's what he's gonna look at, and then he's gonna make a recommendation, and once again, we're not paying for any of this work he's doing. And we're gonna get a bunch of stuff from him for consolidation
so
next week.
how do you
and-
want to handle this? Do you want to take that out until we get it to the appropriate line?
Well, I
Well, what I
just,
would like you to do is to approve the payment and the line where it's coming from to be determined later, because I just would hate to hold up Dave's bills. And a lot of our consultants, for some reason, have not been getting paid in a timely fashion, and I don't want to do that to them. I just want to, if it's our internal problem, I don't want to burden them. And we've been burdening them.
Well, I mean,
some bills-
it's
some
probably
bills-
because the money isn't available, right?
And it probably
Where
has to get
should come
moved.
from. So we're going to have to do a budget modification on that.
Yeah.
there were a lot
what
of,
was your others?
there were a lot of escrows that are just being charged to 802 planning.
Yeah,
Well, they are going to start breaking
On
it down and
page
stuff, so they
14,
will rectify it, but
And this is engineer. And
Yeah.
it says Black Creek Construction, and it's charged to the B Fund engineer.
But she has it, but is it marked as escrow?
It says escrow,
Yeah, she's
but,
got subcategories. What she's doing is, it's probably billed
yeah, but
under,
that's not an escrow.
I understand that because she has to actually move the money, all the money's in one fund.
Right.
She's got to actually sit down and now start moving all that money out that should not be there and put it into this trust and agency
Until
account
that
that we
is charged
have.
to that
But
fund.
until that gets done,
Right.
in order to get the warrant done and to pay the people, it's still being done the broken way.
This is what Susan means by the subcategory. It's not
Mhm.
just point
Right.
400.
Oh.
She's still coding it.
455.
She's got
Yeah.
coding to track it. It's just got to be moved now.
And then these are,
Well, we're inching closer.
Hopefully by like
Real
within the next
system.
couple of weeks, it'll all be rectified and we won't be having this
what about
conversation.
impulse
But,
views? Impulse views is
Not
charged to the engineer.
455.
I mean, honestly,
No. Okay, so New Paltz Views and Hickory Ridge are charged to the regular engineer. I want that charged to the escrow.
Should I just write it down on here?
yeah, but just let me see something. Isn't it,
They're not.
This is
This
your
is
detail.
sub.
let me just see something. Look,
Okay.
everyone that has, where it says here, everything that's probably has a name attached to it, probably is being charged back to an escrow account.
These are being charged to escrows. What about Stop and Shop is an escrow, it's being charged to the engineer. New Paltz Views is an escrow, it's being charged to the engineer.
Yeah, but they're all
Hickory-
being, well, I don't know what the difference is between the 455 and the.
But I do,
This
Um,
455 is Patty's way of
a
saying,
subcategory.
Right, I know, but this is 8020, and then this is,
It's in here, but they take
Engineer.
that account.
Not sub,
yeah, but let me just see what it's for.
they're escrows. New Paltz Views, Hickory Ridge, Black Creek. Stop and
No,
Shop.
wait a second. This one is, okay, you're right, that's
this
Stop
one
and Shop.
definitely is Stop and Shop,
Okay.
right?
And Stop and Shop shares in the A, and this is in the B.
I'm
Okay.
gonna circle them.
Okay, so,
So these should be escrow. But as you say, I mean, I don't have any objection to,
and they were all marked escrow, so I don't know ultimately, unless she's just charging to lines with this money and she's keeping her track or whatever, but,
Okay. Also Hickory Ridge and Black Creek. Because they were on our schedule.
is it all just that or is there
Sorry.
more?
Well, I'm at a disadvantage because I don't have my list. Oh,
oh, yeah,
we were confused about that
right,
one.
right. The timing is not in our favor.
Oh,
I was trying to find one, there's actually an account we have some negative balance.
Patty
We have a
called
negative
Teresa.
balance on,
Okay.
and I put it in there, but maybe it's
Um,
fixed.
Yeah.
Who broke the kitty rule?
Yeah, well, I'm breaking my own rule here.
We have till 11:30, right?
Yes, you do.
We're gonna use every minute.
No, we're not.
Okay. We could start
Okay.
packing up, right?
Central Hudson, okay.
That's a
Now,
huge
the
number.
Holland Lane Pump Station, which is Sewer 5,
And the,
is
like
being
that in there,
charged to
okay.
the A Fund.
I can all follow.
Holland Lane Pump Station, okay, so Susan, do you have an idea
But-
why? The pump station for Sewer 5 is charged to Buildings and Grounds,
$339.82.
$50.16.
Which one, Gene?
The sewer
I mean,
six is
when I-
too.
Sewer 6 we expect, because we all know that Sewer 6 is, but $50.16 is an electric bill for the Holland Lane Pump Station, okay?
And
Which
which
is
thing?
Sewer 5, and it should be, it's part of the operating of Sewer 5. what it's being charged to buildings and grounds in the A fund. I don't understand.
I can find out if she's doing a due to, due from, but like I said today, I found out today that Sewer 5 has also been borrowing money from the A fund. I learned today when we were talking to Ken Bond about how we're gonna solve these problems, and she said Sewer 6 and Sewer 5 has borrowed from the A fund. And I
Okay.
said, oh,
Okay, so
but
I
can-
don't mean to be crabby about this, but I have been on this board now for 9.5 months, and all I've ever heard is Sewer 6 is doing due to, due froms. And that's okay, because I know they're in a pickle. But 9.5 months, and I have not heard that Sewer 5 is also in distress and is being charged to the A fund, and we're doing due to, due froms.
and I think they're probably, look, Jean, I agree.
I-
mean, the
I
controller's
underst-
talks talks about how screwed up it
All
is,
right,
okay?
I said I
It
didn't
is
want to be crabby
completely-
about
no, I
it, and I
understand
know
it.
that you said that you only found
All I
out
can say
today.
is it's screwed
but
up,
it's
and we're trying to
9.5
solve, and we're trying to
months.
fix it with the bond council, so we can take care of this problem off the table. I agree.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt it.
No, I mean, it's.
So just circle what you know, and I can ask her tomorrow. Because remember, when I approve, well, I don't approve the spending for some of this stuff, but
So this is the $50 that should not, is obviously due to from, but,
I mean, if, what is that? Is that for a,
this is the.
It's an
hol-
electric bill.
this is-
okay, I mean, if you want to hold off on that, I don't care. I didn't want to hold off on the professional stuff, because we've done that in the past, and we've really screwed them over.
No, I mean,
But
I
if
don't
there's
want
other
to get
things
a
like,
late fee from Central Hudson. I mean, it's just another example of our internal problem.
Did you write on all the others, Jean?
No, because they're escrows.
Yeah, no, I know, but right now they're being built to the wrong,
Oh,
they're being built to buildings and grounds or to something else, but
street lighting, are we ever gonna get onto that?
I'll find out from, but you
Maybe
didn't
we
budget
could
enough
stop
to start
paying the
with
bill.
anyway.
Right.
Well, we could have all the lights turned off.
So then you do all that, and then these appear to be subs, although I can't
Well-
stand where this is done, but I'll let.
But if there's something you want me to check, just let me know, mark it and I'll check.
Well, I mean, these should all be, she's working on the escrow is what you're saying. It's gonna,
That it will, I mean, yes. I mean, right now I've been keeping her very busy with the budget stuff and asking her
Yeah.
questions and getting budget stuff and having her do reports for me, and she's pulling these trends, like 20-year trends that I've been asking her to do.
right.
Like I just learned that from 1992 to 2000, our spending and taxes went up 11%, and from 2000 to 2012, they went up over 113%. So I've been having her do those kinds of trends for me and stuff. So she's been a little busy, and then she's trying to do all this stuff.
Oh, and there was that lab testing thing. Do you remember what that was about? The water testing? For all.
Well, there's
you
probably
have
water
site
tests. They have to
work
pull water testing for the.
there. Right, I'm just not sure if you were happy with where that was coming from. There.
Environmental lab
Well, they're having their
works.
conversation. They're having their
Okay.
conversation.
No, we're
I'm
good.
gonna come over here and sit with you. And
Now,
No, you're not, no.
No.
We're actually, and we're all working on the
Okay.
warrant, actually.
understand that,
We're
so-
all working on the
are you,
warrant.
okay, environmental lab works is being charged to buildings and grounds. In my opinion, it should be water and wastewater based upon the test
Right,
that
the
is
tests are- yeah,
performed.
the tests belong in, yeah, absolutely,
Makes sense to me.
absolutely. That's where it belongs.
I mean, I think in the past, Bob was doing it, and.
Well, but
know,
you send it out to
I know.
environmental. Oh,
I know.
okay. Oh, you mean because he was taking the
Right,
sample?
right.
Yeah,
So
Oh.
I think that's why it was coming out of there.
right.
Oh,
And that's why we left a note for Patty that, I think we said starting in January, it has to go to each
Yeah, 'cause
district,
Bob always is the one that went out and did the samples,
7 days a week.
yeah, or whatever's required, I always, whatever, is it
He
every day?
said it was every day,
And that's
yeah.
why we're gonna allocate the stipend accordingly.
I don't think Chris will be going out taking the sample. Chris, who's going to collect the water sample every day?
I thought it was
Right now,
environmental.
consultants.
They're doing, are they gonna continue to do it, or are you going to do it? Are they gonna,
They're gonna continue to do it, because it's their license. If we have a hit on anything, low residual, then that's when we take over, run the water.
Can you go ahead and TV? Then you just hear blank TV.
They are taking the daily sample. That was part of the contract. Originally, we were gonna take the sample, but because of the licensing part through environmental consultants, it was easier for them to do it. If we get a hit, low residual, then we sit there and deal with the problem and resample it.
Now, can I ask a silly question?
Sure.
We don't control any of our water system, so why are we sending samples? The village is sending a sample every day. Is that
You-
required?
Yes, you still have to take from your branches, 2 separate places in the town per day, every day, a residual sample, chlorine residual.
Right.
So, can you explain to me the water on Mountain West Road goes on the same side of the road? Does it go on the south
No, it's on the
side?
north side, is it not?
I don't know.
The plant's on the south side.
It's
The
pumped
plant is
from
on
the
the
aqueduct,
south.
take it from the aqueduct
Yeah,
up to the ponds, the water treatment plant,
right.
treated, comes down, I believe it crosses by the aqueduct, and from there goes from the old filtration house down to Canaan Road.
Which puts
Through
you,
the
that's where it
woods.
switches over to the north side of Mountain Rest.
Yes,
Because
Okay.
Yes.
the old
Yep.
plant
And
is
so
on the north
everybody in District 4 who gets their water from there, it
well,
doesn't
not
come.
everybody.
Everybody who does though
Everyone
get
who takes-
municipal
yeah.
water,
Mhm.
it doesn't go all the way into the village
No.
and back out again.
No,
The water they're drinking is coming from that treatment
yes,
plant.
They're the first people to get the water.
yeah.
Okay.
The water's really moving there too, which has always been a kind of a problem.
Is that why?
Well, actually, we think we
Such
might
high-
have conquered some of that problem.
Really?
We discovered that there was
This
some
one.
hydrants that weren't being
Number.
flushed on a regular basis.
Should change.
And after our last flushing,
The
usually,
pre-printed
from my
ones,
understanding,
those.
the volume of
Oh,
calls for dirty
yeah,
water is up quite a bit.
And the only
we
one
had
in the
none.
A is sewer
And that's like
six.
Calvin,
Yeah, Calvin Boulevard, the 2 that were a problem were one on Springtown Road and one on Hickory Ridge.
okay,
They were being missed,
okay. The hydrants,
the hydrants,
okay.
but for flushing, so the sediment built up, and
Okay, good.
we were out there for 45 minutes running a lot of water.
Are the reports now that it's a lot clearer, a lot more clear?
No reports, the water coming out of the plant is extremely clean.
No, but that the families,
I haven't had a phone call saying there was a problem, and typically, from what I understand, it usually, after we flush hydrants for days, you get at least 2, 3, 4 calls a day from the turbidity, and we haven't gotten anything, not one call. One lady who got up very early and took a couple sips of water by accident, without running her water, she was a little concerned about it.
Buildings and grounds.
everything's
or there's
fine. Good.
2 in buildings
It's actually
and
environmental
grounds
consultants, they're working to
And 2. in
streamline some of
highway.
the stuff we're doing. We're trying some new things that haven't, instead of getting at it the same way every day, every year doing it, switching things up a little bit and trying, and,
Yeah, that
so
doesn't
far,
look right.
knock on wood, so we're doing pretty good.
good.
I don't remember.
We're still doing it,
Dave
but
had
I remember
No,
my
good.
friend
Friend.
on
That's
the
what we need.
window.
Yeah.
You guys have any more questions while we have Chris here? Jean, anything for Chris?
Did,
No, she's got
did
nothing.
you sign off on a voucher for boots at the highway department in the last round?
For this person.
in the highway department, there's been a few vouchers.
I'm sure he did, I don't think.
Mike and Dave, that's
No,
not the highway
I
department.
think it's, okay,
That's-
there's 4 pairs of boots there.
They're allowed up to 2 pair?
I remember
Well, you're-
2.
Well, you're allowed, they give you a dollar amount. Let's say they give you, I forget what the exact, it's like,
$300, I believe?
I think it's like $250, but it might be 3.
I think
I
it's
don't-
3, rings a bell.
It's changed,
Yeah.
And if you could buy 10 pairs of boots with that 300, you could do it. If you could buy 2 pairs, that's,
Right.
So that would be
That's
something
fine,
to
too.
change in the
No,
contract.
and
it's
some
different.
carry
The thing
over
is
if you don't
that
use
all
all your
4
money.
pairs are being charged
It'll carry over
to
next year.
buildings and grounds. And I thought that it was only 2 pairs of boots for buildings and grounds, and I thought it was 2 pairs of boots for highway, but if you don't
It's
remember the
it's the
name.
same contract,
I understand, but it's not the same budget line.
okay.
That's,
Yeah.
and
But
I,
these two would be out of water and sewer.
Okay.
And no,
no,
for these 2
4
people.
pairs of boots
Okay.
are coming out of buildings and grounds on this warrant.
Yeah. This one I did not sign a voucher on, because this person was out on workers' comp when the boots were
Ah.
bought, and was approved by the last department head.
You can't be out of workman's comp and
That's correct.
Right. Needing more boots.
well, you can't be working. That would be working.
Right.
That would be definition of work.
What size are they?
The steel toe, you okay with that?
Okay, you got 5 more minutes before the
Okay.
camera goes off.
This is tricky without
Hey, Gene,
Yeah.
her
do you
this.
think that the warrants, do you wanna revise it for next week's meeting, or do you wanna get it? I mean, there's several entries here that are wrong, correct?
No, there's several entries that I had questions on that I didn't sign the voucher because I was waiting for my question to be answered, or whatever.
So you just want the right code, the right line?
Well, it either has to do with coding or it has to do with, like, why are we charging it to buildings and grounds?
But-
That's all.
But part of the problem is, that's our internal bookkeeping problem. She doesn't have a problem with the expenses per se. Okay, it's internal bookkeeping, so to not pay our bills because we can't get our act together internally in town, you know,
I got it.
here is not all the professionals or the vendor's problem.
Right.
Well, I would like to make a motion that the supervisor, that we authorize the supervisor to pay the warrant in this amount of $339,519.12, and that the vouchers that were not signed not get paid, even though the amount is being approved in here, until the supervisor and the bookkeeper can allocate the appropriate line to pay them.
Second.
Well, I only have a little bit of problem because, well, it doesn't matter, fine.
Well, no, she's approving the amount, doesn't mean you're gonna spend the whole amount. If you don't get them signed off, then you wouldn't
No,
spend.
no, no,
Right.
no, there's a lot of work that I have to do between now and next Thursday to prepare all the things that I want to prepare for the next budget meeting, and to spend time trying to figure out with Patty where all this should be billed to. Is just, you know, I suspect it might take a lot of time, and because it sounds like there's a lot of things in there, and I don't know why it's all being billed or whatever, but it's fine, just make the motion and we'll take care of it.
Second,
Just please, I'd like to, you know, let's move on.
second, I
Okay,
second
all in
it.
favor?
Aye.
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 Aye,
You
motion's
just
so
say
carried.
no.
It's okay, motion's so carried.
Do you want to do no?
Aye.
I make a motion to adjourn.
We'll do the
Second.
minutes next week.
All in
Yeah,
favor?
we keep putting them
Aye.
off, but sure.
Aye.
Sure. Although actually, next week I mean, I guess
Thank
we don't
you.
have to do the whole A
Thank you
fund
very
next
much.
week.
Perfect, right on time.
All right.
And I guess what we could do is